What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 70. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the future class of video games, blessing Adeoye Jr.
Greg, who do you got in a foot race between Delson Rowe from Infamous Second Son and Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn?
Well, it's an interesting question. The way I jumped to is you call that foot race very specifically.
Yes. Yep.
So is Delson allowed to use his powers, or does he have to just sprint?
As long as he's on the ground, yes. The question is, does he have any powers that would assist him on the ground?
Yes, he does. I mean,
Foot race, like he has to
he
like
can do
run.
like the neon burst and stuff, like that counts, right?
It's kind of like the
Would
same.
you call that a foot race?
It's the same rules.
I mean, he's on the ground. I'm not saying, let's
Like
bring
if
in
he has
our...
Hold on.
If he
We
has
have
the
a
power,
special third co-host. Let's get him in here. He's the co-host, ladies and gentlemen, of the Trophy Room. You know him as a kind of funny best friend. It's Kyle Stephenson. Hello, Kyle.
Hello.
How do you define a foot race, Kyle? How do you define a foot race? If Delson is using his powers on the ground.
Sure. Yeah, I define a foot race 2 feet alternating, right to left, moving real fast across the ground. I don't think
He
powers
uses his
are-
own burst thing.
So
That doesn't count.
we
I
have to
don't
think
think
about
so.
it as like the Malcolm in the
Barrett
Middle.
Courtney on the ones and
yeah.
twos coming in with some factoids.
The Malcolm in the Middle episode where the dad played by Bryan Cranston is like, it gets up in like that like crazy like walking get up where he's like in like the whole bodysuit. He's got the funny helmet and stuff. And the rule in that was like 1 foot always has to be on the ground. You know what I'm saying? You can't have both feet off of the ground.
okay, well, define both feet off the ground. Because like if you're
Then
running,
it's no longer
right,
a
you got
foot
like
race.
if you got long strides.
I think we understand what running is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we
yes.
understand what powers are.
And so if you're
besides
using
that, he
neon-
can't use his powers, at which point Aloy would outclass this motherfucker every step of the way. Delson, I do graffiti up here. Look at me. I'm edgy. You know what I mean? Aloy is out there running from T-Rexes. That's right. I said it. Don't try to you're wrong me and say there's no T-Rexes in the game. You know goddamn well what I'm talking about.
They're called.
Metal-
they're called. I don't know what they're called. They're
Right,
Zero
you
Dawn.
got
They're
all
giving some
these-
special
you got
name.
Razorbacks and Metal Jaws and also
Metal
Thunder
Jaws.
That was, you got a Thunder Jaw out there
Yeah.
trying to start some shit. Trust me, her cardio is way better than Delson's.
I agree. No, that was the right answer. I was afraid that there was going to be a Delson Rose slant here. I thought somebody here, like out of the three of us, one person here would be like, well, actually, if he uses his video power, he can make it without leaving the ground.
I'm saying if he
I don't
has-
think he
if
has that power.
If he's using all the different powers, then the powers are going to push him over the edge here because he is going up against Aloy, who is a very, well-trained human. Aloy has these limitations. Kyle, are we wrong? Have we missed anything?
No, absolutely not. Aloy would roast Delson in a race.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Kyle, if folks don't know you, who are you?
Yeah. My name's Kyle Stephenson, longtime kind of funny best friend out here on the East Coast on Long Island. I'm a admin in the Facebook group. You might have seen me in there. In addition to, I do a weekly PlayStation podcast called The Trophy Room with another kind of funny best friend that we met because of this community each and every week, every Thursday on everywhere you listen to podcast services, including on YouTube, as well as I started a East Coast best friend community called Kinda NYC with a couple other best friends, Kelsey and Mike Towndrow, and that warped into 6-1 Indie, which is where we cover indie games and uplifting the indie game developer voices because those games are super important. And
Sure.
in my opinion, the lifeblood of video games. We need those in between the big blockbuster games. So.
Here, 100%.
Yeah.
You, of course, downplay it, Kyle. Of course, you say you're a kind of funny best friend and how much stuff you do. You are what I like to call a standout kind of funny best friend, an example of that. And I think you've been
It's
here
too
for
early
years
to make
and
me
years
cry
and
in
years.
this episode, Greg.
You've been here for years and years and years, and you've always been what we talk about, right? You organize meet and greets. You go out there at our meet and greet when we came to New York that one time. You were, quintessential in making sure everything ran fine and that people were organized and things like that. You always got out of your way to make people feel welcome. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And of course, again, you have your own PlayStation podcast, the Trophy Room.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that. We're happy to have you here with
Thank
this
you.
collab.
Absolutely, yeah. I woke up, took a shower, told my imposter syndrome to go fuck itself, and here we are.
yeah.
I'm ready to go.
Perfect. Now, Blessing, you've said many times you don't like Kyle. Why is that?
I mean, he's just too talented. I don't like
that's
competing PlayStation podcasts.
Some might say, Bless, that you were on the Trophy Room before PS I Love You, so
I was.
we gave you your
That is
start
true.
in PlayStation podcasting. Let me just say.
That's when you got a
not-
taste of
that's
it.
true.
You're like, ooh, if I
That's
get
what-
hired at Kind of Funny, that's what I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I got a taste of it, and I was like, all right, enough of this. Enough of this small stuff. I'm going for the big guys. I want to bring back PSILOVEPHOTOMODE XOXO after going on the trophy room. No, Kyle, like I absolutely adore you. Like anytime we've met up at the sort of meeting, you mentioned before the show, Boston, right? And I think any time that we've met in person or that we've been in the same space, I feel like your positivity definitely radiates through. And we both, I believe, adminned the Facebook group at the same time at some point. Yeah, for a short time. Like we had overlapping periods, and you're always a delight. Like you're always a super awesome person. And shout out to you. You do very good work, and you're very loved here in the community.
Thank you very much. Yeah, super inspiring, both of you, and I love you very much. And here they come. All right, let's get on to some some PlayStation news.
You didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is PS I Love You XOXO each and every week. Blessing I and sometimes a special guest like Kyle come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that, you can head over to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where of course you can be part of the show. You can get the ads, or the show ad free. You can't get the ads. You can get it with the post show we do each and every week. And of course, if you were on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where you can ask your questions and be part of the show, you can be watching the show live, just like Ryan is, Frank is, and Madeline are. Of course, we put up a private YouTube link over there so you can watch it as we recorded it on Monday before we edit out any of the fuck ups. What's that? We usually don't edit them out unless they're really bad. That's when you know we really fucked up if we had to edit something. Of course, if you have no bucks to toss our way, though, no big deal. Patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Ignore it. Don't worry about it. You can get every episode of PS I Love You XOXO, usually Tuesdays at 6 a.m. Pacific time. YouTube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday, as I said. Some housekeeping for you. Tim and I's drunken 4-hour part 1 of Emily is Away 3 Let's Play is live on youtube.com/kindafunnygames right now. You can go check it out. Details soon on when we're coming with part 2, but our livers need to recover. Also, very important, we're streaming for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. You can start donating and learning about the charity right now at kindafunny.com/Palestine. That's going to be a very good stream, very fun stream. A lot of people want to join us, so we'll see how long we end up going. Thank you to our Patreon producers who make all this possible. Omega Buster, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, Elliot, and Tom Bach. Today, we're brought to you by Upstart Honey and Canva, but Tim will tell you about it later. For now, let's start the show with topic of the show. Gentlemen, it's been a Rick-rolling week, all right? It's Monday as we record this, of course, but what was it, Blessing, on Friday? That Jeffy Grub from Gamesbeat came at everybody by saying in a tweet, listen, I'm officially ready to confirm it. Starfield is, in fact, an Xbox exclusive. He said, I'll have more information on it later. That's what I know right now. Tim and Greg made me doubt myself when they brought me on the Kind of Funny Games cast. But since that Games cast where we all made our cases, and of course, Phil's been, I don't want to say, he's tried his best. They've made it sound like, yes, it's going to be Xbox exclusive, but they also made it sound that way in a weird way that whereas like there's wiggle room there. So what does it really mean? And then it was a discussion on the Gamescast, available now, podcast services, youtube.com/kindafunnygames. This ongoing conversation of like, cool, well, when is it coming? And is it going to be exclusive? And me being like, I can see it going either way, but if it's coming out this year, I would definitely think it's going to be everywhere. If it's next year, then I really see the window for exclusivity happening. Yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. Jeffy Grub from Gamesbeat came out on our show, was like, I don't know, I think it's going to be exclusive. And they finally confirmed it with information he had. Then, on top of that, Blessing, he tweeted at you and said you were right about the release date, which is going to be
next year, 2022, probably spring.
Yeah, exactly. Q1 2022, right? And then, if that wasn't enough, as we record this on Gamesbeat.com, Jeffy Grub has put up the following report. Microsoft has no plans to release Bethesda's upcoming space role-playing adventure Starfield on Sony's competing PlayStation 5 console. That shouldn't surprise too many people after Xbox boss Phil Spencer said in March that Microsoft acquired Bethesda to add exclusives to Xbox Game Pass. But I've separately confirmed that this situation applies to Starfield through sources familiar with the decision. But some people keep asking about Starfield on PS5 because they don't have insight into Microsoft's reasoning. While Sony or Nintendo would certainly keep new acquisitions locked to their platforms, Xbox has a history of playing nice. Minecraft, for example, is still getting full support on PlayStation and Nintendo platforms. Microsoft even released a new Minecraft Dungeons game on the PS5 and Switch. So why wouldn't Microsoft do the same with Bethesda's games? The difference is that Minecraft is a platform unto itself with millions of active players and in-game transactions. And its platform like that survives when it's available everywhere. Oh, I see what he's saying. I screwed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also asked Xbox for a statement, and I'll update this story if the company decides to comment. Starfield is most valuable to Microsoft as a means to grow Xbox Game Pass. Where Minecraft can exist as its own service, Starfield is about growing the Game Pass service. Even if Bethesda has ambitions to make massive connected live service games, it's unlikely that anything will turn into the next Minecraft. So, an effort like a blockbuster game release from the team that made the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is best if Microsoft treats it as an investment and into a larger service. Quote, with Game Pass now the center of the Xbox ecosystem, it is becoming more important to Microsoft to invest in exclusive content and IP that increases the value of the service and leads to new user acquisitions, Nico Partners analyst Daniel Ahmad explained on Twitter. Ahmad nails it. Microsoft likely did investigate what its financials would look like. Oh God, man, I'm dead today. Would look like if it made Bethesda games exclusive or not. In the end, it chose exclusivity. And yes, that means it will miss out on money from the sales of PlayStation 5. But the point is that Microsoft doesn't see that as losing money. It sees that as a built-in marketing for Xbox Game Pass. And then it also expects to offset many of those costs by building a deeper relationship with more players who then go on to play and even buy more games on Xbox platforms. So yes, Starfield is exclusive. And I would predict that Xbox would make this call for the Elder Scrolls 6 and beyond. Kyle?
Yeah.
You're on PSILOVEPHOTOMODE XOXO. Congratulations.
Yes.
You've made
Thank
it
you.
here. What is your initial takeaway from this? I mean, obviously, you've been prepping yourself for it. It seems like this is where the wind was going to blow. Jeffy says it officially is. What's going on?
Yeah, this is just confirming what I always thought, that, you know, by buying out Bethesda, it would make sense to have brand new IP being locked on that ecosystem as a way to bring people in and have it be like experience it only on Xbox. I did not think we would get the Starfield on PlayStation. My hope is still up for like other long running franchises that have appeared on PlayStation, but even then, that's a very low percentage of like hope when it comes to like Wolfenstein. I love the Wolfenstein series that Machine Games does, and
yeah,
I hope that we get the third or whatever the next one is on PlayStation, but that is slowly dwindling away as well. My hope for that, but yeah, this is a no brainer to me. When you, like Jeff Grubb was talking about, like Minecraft, it makes sense because of just the platform and the community and how many users it already has. But new IP,
the established base, right?
Exactly. New IP only on this ecosystem that was just bought out makes perfect sense.
Are you, as the host of the Trophy Room, disappointed in this?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very disappointed. Starfield is like my most anticipated one from Bethesda, like even more than Elder Scrolls. Because I love space games. Like that's why I'm happy Mass Effect is back, and I was hoping to play that and, you know, earn trophies, because hence the Trophy Room. But I'm still going to play it. Like I'm not one of these people that are one of those rabid fanboys. I play on everything. I appreciate everything. So I'm happy that we have a date. We're close enough to where it's going to come out, and we're going to get our hands on it finally after years of hearing about it. But it's a little bummed that I can't, you know, press the sacred symbols and interact with the game.
Blessing, what's your read on this?
Yeah, I've been of a place where I've not been super confident either way. Like I think with the whole, is it going to be exclusive? Is it not going to be exclusive? There have been valid arguments either way in terms of why. So like to put Starfield on Xbox Game Pass and make it an Xbox console exclusive, you can easily make the case that builds up Game Pass, or that builds up the Xbox library of games, especially for fans that are often rabid for reasons to justify their purchase of an Xbox, right? Like, why should I get my Xbox versus any other console platform if the competitors have a greater amounts of games, or if I can just play these games on PC or whatever it may be. Starfield, I think, is a huge reason to make to your fan base of, no, this is why Xbox is the best way to play, or this is why the Xbox ecosystem is the best place to be. But on the flip side, there's always been the argument of but it's Starfield, right? Like Bethesda games, especially Bethesda Game Studios games, have such a large fan base because you know, Skyrim made a huge splash. Elder Scrolls in general, right, makes huge splashes. Fallout makes a huge splash. And these communities already exist on these other platforms. And so how many sales are you missing out on if you're Xbox, right? And you decide not to put that game out on another platform where you could possibly sell 10 million copies, 20 million copies over the course of an entire lifetime of game sales. You look at how often the Bethesda has re-released Skyrim. You know, they look for every opportunity to release that game, wherever that game isn't. And I think that speaks to the fact that Skyrim and, again, Bethesda Game Studios games have a sense of a wider community that will show up and play those games and buy those games. And so I think that's where that argument lied on the opposite side. And even the article goes forth and mentions that Microsoft likely did investigate what its financials would look like if it made Bethesda games exclusive or not, but in the end, it chose exclusivity. I think that is a probably very, very accurate description of what 100%. Went down, and I'm sure that's what conversations have looked like for the last however long, right, since Microsoft acquired Bethesda. Of, all right, let's sit down and really crunch numbers. Let's sit down and see how much we're losing out on by not putting this out on other platforms versus how many subscriptions we potentially gain, or how much we potentially build the platform by keeping this exclusive to Xbox Game Pass. And so I think at the very end, I mean, they see the numbers and we don't, and the numbers point to, hey, it's a more valuable move to put this as an exclusive.
And this is, again, you know, as Greg, the PlayStation podcast host, whatever, because like obviously I understand if you're a PlayStation only player, this being offensive and being bummed out. Not even offensive, you're bummed out, and I get that and I understand that. But what I find interesting about this is that this is a loss leader. Like, yes, you look at this and you look at how much money you could have made by putting on a PS4, PS5, arguably, right? And having this cross-gen game, and how much you would have made over on these very popular platforms with these giant install bases, right? Let alone the fact, as I talked about in the Gamescast, right? Of like, no matter how early this conversation had started between Bethesda and Xbox, there was definitely a PlayStation version of this game in development at some point, right? And so you think about the sunk cost and man hours on that, of making that, because it's not, as we always talk about, as simple as hitting the port button and there you go. You know, all the Y's become triangles and now we've got a game. Like, there was somebody working on the PlayStation thing. There were hundreds, if not thousands, definitely thousands of man hours put into this. And so to sit there and have that conversation of, all right, cool, we can put it out and we can make the money short term, but do we put it out only on Xbox and, again, recommit ourselves to what this agreement is, what our vision of Xbox is, and what our vision of Game Pass is? And that's been the conversation, I think, that's been fascinating to talk about, as we've talked about, I feel like, every episode of every show for the last 2 years. The difference in opinions in war plans between PlayStation and Xbox, and PlayStation being so by the book, this is what PlayStation's doing. It's a new console they're going on, and this is how they're going to go in. Meanwhile, Xbox being like, they really have seemed as if with Game Pass, they want it on every device, and it's about more than getting you to buy a platform, or it's about more than getting you to buy a console. It's about buying into a platform. But how do you make that happen? And so to have this decision, you assume at Xbox, that's like, cool, do we make more money, or do we commit to what we're trying to do with Game Pass and bring in new Game Pass users? And earlier today on Twitter, of course, when we were prepping the show, I put out the call, of course, calling out the Jeffy Grubb over at Gamesbeat, was saying that this is a done deal. Come on over to Patreon and let me know your thoughts. Do you care, was the question about it. Obviously, as always, I'm always impressed with you, kind of funny best friends, the dozens and dozens and dozens that wrote in with like 45 minutes notice or whatever. But there was an interesting thread I saw throughout this. Of course, you're writing into the PlayStation show on Kind of Funny. You are the PlayStation dedicated audience. Anthony, aka Altered Rain, writes in and says, "Hey, Blessing Greg, the reason this Bethesda Xbox issue for PlayStation isn't bothering me is just the simple fact that I play primarily on PC. So my PC has become my third-party machine / Xbox machine that I never had to worry about these games. Also, they always work / run best on PC anyways." Levi, do I care about Starfield not coming to PlayStation 5? Absolutely, I care. Am I surprised, though? No, not at all. We can no longer expect Bethesda games on PlayStation platforms, period. What we should expect is to never get a Bethesda game on a PlayStation platform again, and just be pleasantly surprised if one does come to PlayStation 5 for some reason. As a PlayStation first gamer, the Xbox Bethesda news continues to suck. They make some of the best, most interesting games in the industry, but Microsoft was smart to do it. I bought a Series X in addition to my PlayStation 5 recently because of this. It's the first time in over a decade I've owned an Xbox. They're making a decision that's smart for them, and anecdotally, it's already working. Adam F., as a big lover of Bethesda RPGs, it would probably make me buy an Xbox. Peyton Stone, I may very well purchase an Xbox for the first time in my life and load up the Game Pass machine to play. Ron, I was definitely already planning on getting a Series X at some point, but Starfield will mean I will be getting one sooner than I planned. Kyle, I'm fully baked into the PlayStation ecosystem and can't afford a PC or Xbox for just one game. But Game Pass's potential availability on things like a streaming stick or other devices I already own could make Starfield very appealing, even as a Sony pony. Kyle, this is exactly what they wanted. They played us like a damn fiddle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm impressed by Xbox's ability to learn from what Sony has been doing for such a long time, and I think their vision of really doubling down and wanting to invest in true exclusives that you can only play there is exciting. As a person that is a PlayStation ecosystem player through and through, that is my main place. Like, I think it's super exciting seeing the competing brands, actually dive in and give me a reason to go get that system. Like, I'm with all these people. Yeah, I definitely wanted to get a Series X at some point, but with this news of Starfield being exclusive, that has sped up the timetable of when I'm going to get one, because they are basically like, here's an exclusive you can only get on our thing, which is why I love PlayStation for their many exclusives, and we'll talk about in a little bit the many more in development. But
Of course, yeah.
yeah, I think this is the right move. As much as I'm bummed by it selfishly, like, I think this is a home run.
Yeah, in a weird way too. Like you mentioned earlier, Greg, how Microsoft and Xbox have been making different moves than the traditional PlayStation format, which has been big about getting exclusive games, creating big budget, big titles that people can only play on PlayStation. In a weird way, I feel like this move is a very PlayStation move to make for Xbox. Like to have this thing be available only on their platforms, which is why, like, you come back to I think there's a lot of people that ask the question, understandably so, of, well, why is this unexpected, or why should this be a surprise? Like, if Nintendo bought Bethesda or if PlayStation bought Bethesda, nobody would blink an eye, nobody would ask the question. But I think it is the fact that Xbox is so weird in how they operate and so different in a lot of ways, very forward looking in how they operate, that not that it's a bad move or a disappointment or a surprise necessarily, but I could have seen it going the other way. I think we could have seen it going the other way, where they're like, nah, man, fuck it. Like, let's just put these games out. And then on Game Pass, that's going to be the strategy, because Game Pass is something that's new. Game Pass really is the thing that comes into play and really changes up the ways in which this can pan out. And I think the question might still be there in terms of other Bethesda games. I believe the quote that we got earlier in the year from, I forget if it was from Microsoft or from somebody at Bethesda, but there was a quote that came out about them talking about how, games that have established fan bases on other platforms might end up seeing their way or might continue seeing existences on those platforms. But again, that's the thing that we'll have to wait and see how that actually pans out. But that brings up the question of Wolfenstein 3 and the next Doom and the next Dishonored.
I mean, but that's my thing, is I think this, and again, we should have pointed this out at the top of the show, but obviously Jeff Grubb's reporting this. He's not there's no official statement from Xbox. There's no official statement from Bethesda. But as we sort through what the business realities of all this is and where it goes, for me personally, I believe this. And then I also think that this means, yes, 100%, this is all Bethesda games on lock. It doesn't matter. And I think the quote you're referencing, right, where you're talking about things could change for stuff, is from what I have it here from Eurogamer Matt Wales in March of 2021. It was Phil on that roundtable event, and he said, quote, obviously I can't sit here and say every Bethesda game is an Xbox exclusive, because we know that's not true. There's contractual obligations that we're going to see through. We have games that exist on other platforms, and we're going to support those games on those platforms they're on. There's communities of players. We love those communities, and we'll continue to invest in them. And even in the future, there might be either contractual things or legacy on different platforms that will do.
Yes.
But if you're an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is that this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. And that's our goal. That's why we're doing this. That's the root of this partnership and what we're building. And the creative capability we'll be able to bring to the market for Xbox customers is going to be the best it's ever been for Xbox after we're done here. So, like, again, like, yes, I think when he's talking about existing platforms and communities, he's talking about Minecraft. He's talking about Minecraft Dungeons.
Legacy was the one I was thinking of specifically. That wording was the one that we
Yep.
had a back and forth on when that quote first came out, and we're really trying to parse out what that means. And
that's when
I think
Paris was in here doing his victory laps, yelling at me,
Yeah.
saying, "No,
And
no, it doesn't mean legacy like that." And he was correct. And again, I'm where you and I talked. I've been a lot of people on the internet accuse Greg Miller of being, milquetoast and just being boring or whatever. Like, this has been one of those where I'm always like, I could see this side, I could see that side. Like, I think it's clearly where it's going now, but I could make an argument on any given day on why one side would be the one they'd go with.
And honestly, if I was them, if I'm making the decision to keep Starfield on Xbox, I'm also making the decision to keep the next Doom and the next Wolfenstein. Because you look at what a banger of a year that could be, right, for this next year for Xbox. If Halo Infinite comes out this fall and it hits and it's good, and then the following season you have Starfield come out and it's big and it's good, like, Starfield is going to be theoretically the biggest game release of the year. And if you can have that exclusive, imagine what that does for talk about your platform, let alone that game coming out on Game Pass. What does that do for Game Pass and the conversation around that? That alone really changes what the standard becomes in terms of like what our expectations for games and for the availability of them are. Like we're in the middle of a conversation about Returnal and that game being $70 and how big of a thing that was. There was an article that went up this last week that was an interview. It was from Axios. It was an interview with the team at Housemarque, and they were talking about how, like,
Mikhail, right?
Yes. Yeah. And they were talking about how, there was a quote in there that was basically, we learned at the same time as everybody else that the game was going to be $70. And when PlayStation is putting out these banger premium, like, amazing games, right, that are first party exclusive on PlayStation, it's awesome because the games are incredible. But when you have Starfield, again, the biggest game release of probably of next year, that's going to be available on Game Pass.
Ragnarok, come on now.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we'll see when we get there.
Yeah,
but, like,
we'll argue. We'll argue closer.
We'll argue when we get there. But that's gonna do so much for the conversation in terms of what our expectation for game availability 100%. And prices are, and it's gonna shift so much sentiment toward Xbox.
And that's my thing. So. And Kyle, I'd love your opinion on it because obviously Blessing and I talk at each other on 100 different shows a week. But this is something I've gone back and forth with and talking about, right? Where it's like I feel like Xbox continues to load the gun and they're waiting to pull the trigger. And do you see that being the same way? They've done such a great job of building up Game Pass, and now obviously with ZeniMax, Bethesda, obviously with Double Fine, obviously with all these games that are finally there. Do you think we're about to see them kick over that first domino, maybe at E3, and it starts tumbling of like, oh, here's why you need to be on Xbox? And at that point, is it too late for PlayStation?
Yeah, no, I absolutely am with you on that one. I think they're just waiting and they can just drop everything out of nowhere, and PlayStation's going to be so far behind when it comes to, just announcements from game-wise and just services and whatnot. And I think you saw that a little bit like over the past month or so where Xbox keep bringing up news about Xbox services and games and whatnot, and PlayStation being so silent, which is one of my biggest issues most of this year and last year, but they've been getting a little bit better lately in the last couple of weeks. I'm just so happy for there to be such a competition again. Like it is fueled, the energy is there between both of them, and that's only going to breed betterment for both brands.
Sure.
But yeah, I think Xbox is absolutely going to crush it at E3 this year, and I hope as a PlayStation fan that PlayStation also has some surprises and some megaton announcements up their sleeve to combat that, because they got to know. We know pretty much what Xbox's slate is from first party. We know a lot of it, which is very much like old PlayStation, where we knew
Oh yeah,
the same games over and over again.
How many E3s do we see Ghost of Tsushima at? Yeah,
absolutely.
Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, 100%. This actually is an interesting one to bring more context into from Patreon, right? Because the conversation, obviously, last week when we started talking about, as we will in the PlayStation updates, the 25 exclusives PlayStation Studio is working on, the 7.8 million PlayStation 5s that have been sold. Like, there had been this conversation throughout our shows and in the industry of like, man, Xbox is killing it with messaging. Oh my God, they're killing it with acquisitions. Oh my God, they're killing it with this. But then it's always been this conversation of, does it matter? PlayStation continues to sit there and sell 7.8 million PlayStation 5s. They could do more. Obviously, they've won the mind share with the PlayStation 5. Obviously, they're dominating with games like Returnal, Miles Morales. You see that as we gear up now for Horizon. Things are going on like that. I want to bring in this question from Thunderstruck, who wrote into patreon.com/kindafunnygames, just like you can. It says, hey, Greg, Bless, and Kyle. So, we somewhat have confirmation that Starfield is going to be an Xbox exclusive, which is great for Xbox fans. I don't see what the uproar is. Paris has correctly said it to death. You don't spend $7.5 billion to buy Bethesda and not have exclusive content. My question is, does PlayStation have to answer this acquisition with one of their own after all? I know multiple new exclusives were teased by Herman, but it seems weird that PlayStation would lock timed exclusivity for Deathloop and Ghostwire, reportedly in an attempt to get Starfield as well, with so much on the horizon potentially. Also, not sure how it affects things, but it seems like maybe WB is up for grabs. Worth a look. Thanks for all the great content and being vocal about Palestine. Love supporting you guys. Thunderstruck. Blessing. Does PlayStation have to answer with an acquisition of their own?
Oh, I love this question. I mean, with an acquisition of their own, no. Like I think that could be an option for an answer, but you started off that question by asking like, does it matter? And I think you can make the argument a couple of ways. You could talk about from the business standpoint and the number standpoint, and I think for the most part, the answer is probably going to be no. Like, it doesn't matter in terms of how PlayStation operates as a brand in the business. They've got mindshare. They've got exclusives. The PlayStation 5 is selling out. It's super difficult for people to get right now. Like, PlayStation's killing it, and PlayStation's going to sell probably another 100 million units by the end of the generation. And so, like, I think from that standpoint, no, it doesn't. For me as a player, personally, and I think for a lot of the community, like, yeah, it does matter because, one, I'm a big fan of Bethesda games. I love like all of us here are probably like I love Fallout. I love me some Doom. I love Arcane Studios, and we're in a large amount of third-party support is going to be gone. Like a chunk of third-party support for big games is going to be gone from PlayStation. I think in terms of the community and how they receive that, I think that matters, especially when you bring in the case that now, like, what is the Western RPG output on PlayStation? It's rough out here. Like, you just got Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is awesome. And as I'm playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition right now, I'm 10 hours in, having a blast with it. I'm sure I'll talk about that later. But playing it over the weekend had me really craving Starfield. I kept having the thought of like, man, Starfield is about to be a modern, big budget from one of the biggest RPG studios in the world, another space opera that is probably going to follow in the footsteps somewhat of a Mass Effect. And that's not going to be available on PlayStation. Like a game like Outer Worlds, which was winning awards in the year that came out, that's not available on PlayStation. The Xbox has that market cornered if you want to talk about genres, right? They got the big Western RPG market cornered. They also have like a lot of the big first-person shooter studios in their pocket too. When you talk about Doom, when you talk about Wolfenstein and Halo and a lot of the other things too. Like that's the part for me where it starts to become, all right, like what moves does PlayStation make in order to counteract the fact that there's now going to be a little bit of lacking from the catalog side? I think that comes in the form of, it could come in the form of acquisitions. I think it could also come in the form of partnerships, as we'll talk about in the 25 studio story, where
just bring it in. This is a conversational show. We keep hinting around. It's a PlayStation update, Kyle. Batten down the hatches.
Mitchell Clark from The Verge put up an article this last week talking about how Sony has 25 PS5 games in the works, including characters you've never seen. The article goes like this: Sony is apparently looking to release more than 25 PlayStation 5 games under its PlayStation Studios brand, and nearly half of them will not be sequels or spin-offs, according to Wired's interview with PlayStation Studio lead and former Guerrilla Games managing director Herman Holst. That could theoretically be a lot more games than the 4 first-party Sony titles we already know about, being Horizon Forbidden West, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, God of War Ragnarok, and Gran Turismo 7. And when we talk about 25, and this is me again, I'm done with the article. When we talk about 25 PlayStation 5 games in the works, one, that's a large number, and that's a very exciting number. But then also, that comes in the form of the PlayStation first party games that you expect, Spider-Man 2, Horizon Forbidden West, and that's stuff that's announced and not announced, right? Like God of War Ragnarok, and you expect sequels to Ghost of Tsushima and the like. But that also includes games like Returnal that we just got, partnerships of that ilk. That includes,
they're talking about the PlayStation Studios brand, right? And this is something I've talked about a little bit already, of like, it's the idea that, when they started talking about PlayStation Studios, we're like, oh, that's just an interesting rebrand for worldwide studios. Okay, whatever. And now what we've seen is it really reframed the conversation, where PlayStation Studios, yes, includes all the first party, which used to be worldwide studios, but goes into things that you would have called second party deals before, right? It is your Returnals, right? It would be, if it was dropping today, Bloodborne. It would be anything that's coming that is exclusive, that is PlayStation's partially funding, help getting to market, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it can come to PC eventually or whatever the hell it is, but this is their answer to, cool, it's almost the way that I think, to obviously lead everything back to kind of funny, because it's all I know about running a business. It's almost like what I think when we went from, cool, this is the core, this is what kind of funny is, to be like, oh wait, we can have the part-timers come in, and suddenly there's an umbrella on it, right? That includes so much more, that can be, okay, well, Janet doesn't work here full time, but she's on shows all the time. She's part of kind of funny, right? I feel like that's the same thing here, with the exception that I guess Janet would be on Min-Max then. But it's weird to think about people as exclusives. That doesn't make sense, but you understand what I'm talking about. Of like, that's what a PlayStation Studio means now.
Exactly, and it's gonna mean Haven Studios game when that comes out, right? Jade Raymond. It's gonna mean, I think the studio is called Firewalk. That's working on the first person shooter multiplayer game. I think I got that right. That includes them, and that's gonna include future partnerships along with the first party stuff. Which, when we come back to the conversation of, does PlayStation need to acquire studios, or what does this acquisition mean for PlayStation's catalog of games, or what do they need to do? I do want PlayStation to have those games, and like before, I was fine with there not being an exclusive PlayStation Western RPG because Bethesda was making them. But now that Bethesda is not making them, I would say, PlayStation needs to bring in a studio to make one, or make something, right, to fill in that gap. So that's where I'm at with it.
Kyle, does that resonate with you?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I would love for PlayStation to make an acquisition of some kind, maybe not buying a gigantic third-party publishing arm like Bethesda, because that's like, I don't think one of the listeners who wrote in before mentioned WB. I don't think Sony has the money to throw around for that kind of size of an acquisition, but I would love for them to. I'm a big fan of PlayStation fostering that relationship with studios and then buying them, much like they did with Insomniac. So I would love for them to just, put a ring on it with Housemark.
And that's
buy
oh my God,
yeah. And then continue making these deals for these major exclusives like Final Fantasy 16 being exclusive to PS5 on the console. Like, there are going to be these absolute bangers of exclusives on the PlayStation console and the ecosystem that they don't have to spend out this ridiculous amount of money and buying these crazy huge companies. Like, just make it make sense for PlayStation. That's what I want. This
is where it gets weird, right? And I think I want to bring in Philip's question. Philip writes into kindoffunny.com/Patreon, just like you can. It says, I was looking forward to Starfield because I've been wanting to get a good, in-depth, and all-consuming sci-fi space opera RPG from a developer I could trust. I want the second coming of Mass Effect, and I can only afford one console. So now I have to hope Sony Studios can provide for a different third-party developer, or a different third-party developer will emerge. I'm worried that the Bethesda deal is going to turn the Cold War of acquisitions red hot. That's a great statement, Philip. Yeah. Microsoft has gone nuclear, and now PlayStation will have to respond. That's where the entire thing gets interesting for me, is in this reality and looking with this lens. I do wonder where PlayStation Studios is like, hey, we have 25 things in the works right now. You don't know about half of them. There are a whole bunch of different partnerships that are games and IP that are going to be exclusive to PlayStation. But I do wonder if that's their strategy, that's the hand they've played, that's what they're talking about. And granted, that could change quickly. But clearly, Microsoft's mentality is already shifted. So does Microsoft look at a Housemark now and go, okay, and go over and approach them about buying them? And I know I'm I would assume these kind of conversations have happened before. Maybe I'm not talking to you, Echo. Maybe it's, that PlayStation's approaching before they've rebuffed them. We hear about these conversations all the time, the studios that want to remain independent and have had people come and talk to them about it. But at what point does the right deal come around? Does the right set of circumstances come around? I mean, I think of Double Fine, celebrating 20 years, right? And they were like the idealized, put them on a pedestal indie development team of, we are just making weird shit and we're barely making it sometimes. It's, you know what I mean? We're going to Kickstarter or there's documentaries, you see how close they were to destruction or whatever. But the fact that they went to Microsoft, what does that mean? And as people see Game Pass's offerings continue to ramp up, and even to be, I mean, if you are Housemarque and they came to you, it is that conversation of, we didn't know our game was $70, so it was $70. Not that I think that's would be on the Housemarque side. You look at it, be like, oh my god, what are they talking about? Clearly, this is a game that PlayStation sees that much in. That I think that's a badge of honor. But how many more people would Eternal reach if it was on Game Pass right now? And there's this push and pull of, what does that mean? And does this signal to somebody, okay, cool, PlayStation's going to keep getting these things, but by the time all 25 of these games have come out, how many of those handful of developers, I'll say, who knows how many are going and how many are actually third party versus first party, but how many of those 25 games and their given developers are actually independent still by the time they get there?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it is about relationship with the studio. Like, I wouldn't be worried about a Housemarque acquisition from PlayStation being a bad thing, because they've fostered that relationship over the course of a generation. And with Housemarque releasing a banger first party game for PlayStation, I think that puts them in a place where we know they work together well, and we know that PlayStation, at least we assume that PlayStation really likes what Housemarque did with Returnal. I get a little bit scared with an acquisition battle, going from the Cold War to the acquisitions turning red hot, and with the idea that a lot of that stuff you can rush into, and it turns into this thing of, all right, so like, if PlayStation just starts acquiring studios just to acquire them so they can keep with Xbox, how long until those studios get shut down because they end up not fitting in with the company culture of PlayStation, and not fitting in with the overall mission statement or plan is of PlayStation first party? We just saw what happened with Japan Studio, right? And we've seen what's happened over the course of the last decade with a lot of PlayStation first party studios, when it seems like they just don't fit in with what the current plan for PlayStation is. Every now and then I still worry about Media Molecule, right? Because like, they're doing shit that's so weird, and it's like, how long until PlayStation's like, well, Dreams didn't sell as much as we wanted to, and Media Molecule is good at making these weird games, and so we're gonna make Media Molecule make something that fits in with the third person action adventure, or we're gonna make Media Molecule work on a Naughty Dog game, or do something with them that is more aligned, as opposed to let them be them. I would hope that's not gonna happen, and I don't think that's gonna happen, because there's an understanding of what Media Molecule is. But when you have a lot of studios that are kind of all over the place, then it turns into this thing of, all right, but what's necessary here? Which is where I think partnerships make a lot more sense in terms of the Returnal stuff and the Haven Studio stuff and that type of development. Microsoft on their side, I would say they have fallen into like let's get Double Fine, let's get Ninja Theory and all that stuff. But it seems like Microsoft is a little bit more offhand with how they allow their first party studios to operate, and so maybe that makes a little bit more sense. But I do like the idea of studios having their own voice, having their independence, and be able to do what they want. But Housemarque, I think it would make sense. Insomniac, when PlayStation acquired them, made sense. Like that, those are the type of acquisitions I want to see out of PlayStation.
Yeah, that Fear Blast that you're talking about is one that I was so angry about the news. I think it was this year, of like the Vicarious Vision stuff with Activision and Blizzard, where they knocked it out of the park with Tony Hawk Pro Skater remake. What they did with that game is incredible, and then to just turn them into a support studio with established franchises like Diablo and whatnot, like they're a talented team. I have no doubt that they're going to use their talents wisely, but I would much rather have them make their own unique stuff and stay with their vision and use their talent for new things and grow that way. So like your fear with Media Molecule is one that I share as well. Like, I don't want them to just take this super talented creative team and have them, work on things that they don't want to, because you're not going to get the best stuff out of them if that is the case.
Here's a turn I want to take on the conversation that I think is important as we talk about this and how, oh, well, I'll just get an Xbox and I'll just do this or I'll just get Game Pass or I don't care. I care a bit, but it's whatever. Andy Flush writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, my question is, should we be more upset and angry at companies buying users out of the market? Isn't it extremely anti-consumer to effectively take these games away from such a huge user base of PlayStation owners? This is a conversation that obviously gets spun up when we start talking about exclusives and is it anti-consumer? And I think when Jason Schreier was on Kinda Funny Games Daily, he made a point about all this and like how he found it so weird that at these press conferences, when somebody announces something's exclusive to their platform and they have a 6 months exclusive console, that there's a cheer and everybody claps and stuff because you're clapping that another huge part of the market can't play the game, and that's interesting and weird. Is there a conversation to be had here about the Bethesda deal or exclusives in general being anti-consumer? I feel like it's one of those questions that we don't ask anymore because this is how video games work. And it's also this weird thing of the counter argument to this, of course, is that it's not anti-consumer, it's pro Microsoft, it's pro PlayStation, it's pro Xbox. It's trying to better serve your audience, right? Like, is Kinda Funny anti-consumer because the Next Gen podcast is an exclusive on Patreon? That's the kind of conversation I feel like you get into. What business? Am I off, Bless? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're trying to say. And I think there's so much context that goes into it. I remember when the second Tomb Raider game was exclusive for Microsoft when it came out. That was a huge thing people got upset about, and I think rightfully so, because essentially what went down there was Microsoft approached Square Enix and was like, hey, we'll pay for exclusivity for a year for this game. And it was a sequel to a game that had wider availability. You know, the first Tomb Raider reboot game came out everywhere. And so when it was either Shadow or Rise. Was it Rise? When Rise came out on Xbox, that became a huge controversy. And you know, I think I was listening to KFGD when Jason Schreier was on, and when he made the point, you know, I nodded along and I was like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like the fact that at press conferences a developer will be like, and this game is available for nobody else but these guys, and we clap and cheer, is a strange thing, you know, is a weird thing. And I think in terms of the context of it, you know, like I look at PlayStation acquiring Insomniac as a thing to, at least for me as a part of the PlayStation audience, I get excited about that because I think that just means, for me, that signifies we're going to get more Spider-Man games. We're going to see that partnership continue to flourish because that partnership gave birth to a very excellent product. You know, if Housemarque partnering with PlayStation allows them to make Returnal. You know, before Housemarque was working on Returnal, they were working on that battle royale multiplayer game that they seemed like they weren't even too happy to be working on because
arcade is dead. We have to do something to keep our studio alive. Battle royales are popular. Here we go. Yeah,
exactly. And so the fact that PlayStation was able to partner with them, that gave them the support that they needed to make an incredible game in Returnal that feels like it falls way more in line with what they want to do and the design philosophy around their games. And so I think there's so much context that goes into each situation that it's hard to make like the hard cut of like exclusives are bad or it's anti-consumer. I think there's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah, how many of these games wouldn't get made if they weren't through these deals? And there's so many different ways to talk about it, skin the cat, you know what I mean? In terms of like, all right, cool. Well, like, you know, when you see something exclusive to Nintendo, like Hades, right? And then you finally see it start coming, it had a window of exclusivity there, which probably means that, you know, Nintendo paid them either money straight up, paid for their marketing budget, did something like that. You always talk about these PlayStation deals, right? The exclusivity, even the timed exclusivity, usually are in for money, obviously, partnerships. All the indies you see going there, there's usually a lot of money being thrown at them to come to there, do it. There is this, you know, rush to do it. And there's the argument, of course, of like, well, like, obviously a games creator is making the game, and the creators of a game are making the game because they want the greatest number of people to play it. However, again, we always go back to it, this is a business, and it's this weird merging of art and business colliding where, yes, I'm sure whoever's game is exclusive somewhere would love that everybody on every platform could play it. However, they also want to make sure that they're in the black and that they paid everybody and that everybody has insurance and everything went normal the way it should have gone. So it's like, do you roll that dice to put the game out by yourself or with a publisher or whatever, but put it out everywhere and get no marketing push for it? Or do you sign the deal to get the tweets, to get the PlayStation blog post, to get it on the top of the store? It's a trade-off for how the business works, and I don't know how to fix that and make it not like that. Does that make sense, Kyle? Do you think about this question? Is it something you wrestle with on the trophy room?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's obviously we're super excited for exclusives on PlayStation, but I've also been guilty of clapping when a game gets like an exclusive thing on PlayStation. But like Blessing's example of Rise of the Tomb Raider, that actively bummed me out because I was so high on the first game, and when it was announced that it was going to be Xbox exclusive for a full year, that completely killed all the hype for that game for me, and it took me at least another 2-3 years before I actually played it.
Sure.
And because I was so bummed out by that, so I can see the pros and cons of exclusives. The pros, at least from a fan base, being like kind of like a reward for investing in the ecosystem that you're playing on, like a like pat on the back or a sticker on the sticker sheet, like you in elementary school or whatever.
Hey, I mean, like it's what you're talking about and what we talk about. Like,
Yeah,
you've punched your ticket on one of these platforms, and then the hope is that the company you're supporting pays it forward to you and
Absolutely,
justifies your purchase.
yeah, exactly. And I think exclusives are the best way to do that, and no matter what they are or how they happen, I think it's great. I love them. I just hope we don't get to a point where there is no outside company or the game being on everywhere, because
Sure.
I think those are equally as valued than exclusives.
Right. And I think, that's where this conversation of, a big purchase comes in, right? Where obviously a Ubisoft, an EA, an Activision Blizzard, they want their games on as many platforms as possible to make as much money as possible. And again, where you start having those trade-offs, and what we're talking about there is AAA games versus indies, right? Especially for you, Kyle, 6-1 indie, talking to all these indie developers, right? And then what they have to go through to get to this point. You see so many people get to, cool, we raised a bunch of money, we got to this thing, we are out of money. And so now it is doing a mortgage. It is worrying about laying people off. It is that we can't risk this game not hitting, and that's where these deals come from so often. And again, I think it's what I keep referencing Double Fine in the Microsoft conversation, but it's the same idea of like they had obviously so many successes, but so many games that spoke to the Double Fine audience, but not to a larger audience. And again, with Bethesda, it's another conversation where obviously Fallout's huge, but how big was Prey? Could Prey have been bigger? There's a Bethesda audience that buys every Bethesda game, but
I believe I forget, this is years ago now, but I think they said something about Dishonored being put on the shelf, for a while because theoretically because the game just didn't see the support it needed from sales and all that stuff. And you point out Prey, but they're also coming. You're looking at a Bethesda that's also coming off of Fallout 76 and Wolfenstein Youngblood and a bunch of games that I'm sure didn't necessarily tank them. What was the other one? Rage. Coming off a bunch of games that didn't, I wouldn't say necessarily tank them for sure, but games that for me felt like they kind of had to put out in order to like either keep those franchises running or just get money in order or get games out so they can make the money off of. Like the last couple of years of Bethesda there didn't really speak to me as the Bethesda we know and love outside of things like Doom Eternal, right? And so like I wouldn't be surprised if them being bought by Microsoft was the thing they needed to go, okay, cool, now we're comfortable as a company. We had to make certain choices, or we had to make certain choices because of financials or whatever the reasons were, but now we can exist and make the choices that we feel like we want to make as a company, or operate in a way that is more conservative with our franchises so that we aren't putting out your Fallout 76s and all that stuff. I think there could be an argument there, and this is me speaking purely speculatively and not knowing shit about how shit actually works over there. But I think that it's a very good point talking about indies and how much a Xbox coming through and being like, hey, if you put your game exclusive for Game Pass for this long, we'll essentially pay for your development. That is so big in a way that it's hard for me to really get upset at. And usually when these exclusive deals come around, right? Like I think using the Bethesda one as a big example, Bethesda being bought by Microsoft was a thing that at very first blush, I would say, disappointed me, but not in a way where I was mad at anybody. Like I wasn't mad at Microsoft. Sure. I wasn't mad at Bethesda. Like I think there's the realistic aspect of it, which is this is a business and companies got to do what they got to do in order to make money. And Microsoft is trying to sell Game Pass. Bethesda is trying to live. Like these things happen. And for me as a PlayStation fan, I was like, damn it, I love playing these games on PlayStation. And of course, I'm in a blessed place where I have an Xbox also, so I'll just play those games there. But I also understand people who are like, well, fuck, I can't play these games, or I have to find a different way to play these games. I understand that from all different standpoints.
Yeah, it's a weird mashup of, I don't know. As part of me wonders if it's like Stockholm syndrome of like, well, this is how it's always been. So yeah, it's not anti-consumer. When it's like, well, it is, and I don't. It's, I feel in so many ways pro developer of being, you know, that you're getting all this money to do your work and not have to worry about the overhead, not have to worry about this. If you're an indie developer, to have your thing paid off. But I understand why, like even for Starfield right now, you're like, as a PlayStation fan, oh, that fucking sucks. You know what I mean? But there. I don't know.
I think the thing is that we're super tuned in versus like a wider audience that probably doesn't care about business whatsoever and sees games coming to PlayStation exclusive in sheers without that context, just knowing that that's an exciting thing for some reason. Whereas us, we're very tuned in terms of how development often works and what the business realities of it are, and I think we're just more understanding of like, oh yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do to get your game out and make sure that you're continuing living, which is why we respond to it in a different way that might not be as, oh well, fuck, you know, exclusives, or oh, we're super bummed about it, to the point of whatchamacallit, like, why can't I think
boycotting?
Of the word? Boycotting. Thank you. I was like, why can't I think of the word boycotting? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like on a smaller scale, I remember back when like I worked at GameStop, having to explain to parents and people coming in that the newest Call of Duty maps are only on Xbox for 6 months. So you can't buy that DLC pack for PlayStation. You gotta wait 6 months, and them just looking at me like, why? That's stupid. Like like you mentioned, like we're in it because we're making content about it and talk about the news, whatever. But the normal people out there that go to the mom and pop shops are going to, you know, not know about the ins and outs about that, and wonder and have these questions and ask why exclusives are a thing and why can't I play it on this thing, or you get the grandparents be like, why can't let me get a copy of Mario on PlayStation? Can I make that happen?
And you raised such a good point of like, you know, like the mom and pop consumer, right? And Starfield is not a great example of it. Definitely Fallout will be, definitely Elder Scrolls will be. But of the people who buy those games, like I think of Poe, right, who has a PlayStation 5, and Poe, of course, you know, is always my mainstream friend, right? He buys the game, he plays the games, he's not watching IGN, he's not looking at kind of funny stuff. When he loves Assassin's Creed. So if tomorrow Assassin's Creed was suddenly exclusive to Xbox and he saw the new ads for Assassin's Creed, at what point does he go, wait, why? You know, he goes in, he's on Amazon and he can only find the Xbox version. He's like, what the hell's going on? Like when you get to a Fallout, when you get to a thing like that, you wonder where we are. And if those people would then go, okay, well, what's this Game Pass thing? Are they drilling down enough into that, or are they just going, I'll buy the console? Million questions still to figure out. We don't know. Finally, before we get out of here on this Starfield thing, I want to end on this one from Matt, Game Guy Grover, who.
Direct frozen for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I thought my entire computer froze for a second, and it was really scary. But yeah,
you think he's still talking right now? You think he's still just? Going
I think his computer is probably.
He's
just
going.
Yep, he's gone. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'll just pick it up from where he left off.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, he's back.
There we go.
I can hear you the entire time. And you're like, whoa, you're frozen. I was like, oh, who's frozen? Oh,
good old
me.
Discord.
Can you hear me? And you're like, no, I can't. I'm like, oh, no. I'll redo this again. Patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Matt, Game Guy Grover writes, and it says, I think the Starfield hype, as it is now, doesn't make sense. All we know about it is Bethesda in space. I know Bethesda makes mostly great games, but being hyped about something you don't know anything about just seems to be setting yourself up for disappointment. We knew a ton about Cyberpunk 2077 and trusted CD Projekt Red due to their pedigree, and look what happened. I know Bethesda is much more established than CDPR, so it's different. But I just can't get past the cautious optimism phase. Am I wrong? Is this a bad comparison to be making, and if so, why? Kyle, is Matt wrong?
He's not wrong. I don't think his hesitation is misplaced at all. I think Cyberpunk burned a lot of people, myself included. I'm excited to finally play that game later this year, at some point, hopefully. But yeah, I think it's wild that we are so hyped for a game that we've literally only seen a logo. If I'm like maybe even like a small short like teaser video, nothing about it. in terms that's exciting because there's more unknown there, but there's also the dark cloud of what if this game doesn't live up to the Bethesda hype of RPGs? Like that is it's a big question that is unanswered, and hopefully when
I would be
show
so heartbroken. I would be torn. If you're telling me Cyberpunk didn't live up, and now the next Bethesda game doesn't live up,
Starfield stinks.
I'm switching jobs. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. The stress of video games has gotten to me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing where I hear you, Matt. Yes, you should be cautious. You should be cautious and take everything with a grain of salt about any video game that isn't out that you are excited for. It is just that idea here of, I think, Elder Scrolls being so established and Skyrim being so fantastic, Fallout traditionally being so established and everybody really loving it. The idea that it is, hey, a brand new universe, a brand new world, a brand new thing from the mind of Todd Howard has people super jazzed. And it's a Bethesda game, but it's a Bethesda game now under Microsoft, which does make me wonder is, hey, guess what? We're releasing Starfield early access. Like, it's going to be bad. There's going to be problems. We're working through. You're going to have save crashes and all of this stuff, and it's on Game Pass. So what do you care? It's free. And if that brings down the expectations, because for years, right, the joke's always been that a Bethesda game launches and it doesn't get fixed for months and months and months. And so, yeah, I don't think Starfield's going to be the second coming in any way. I would say, like, I'm excited to see what it's all about. I'm excited for another Western RPG. I'm excited for it to be in space and see what that looks like, because I'm just excited for something new. Where Skyrim was great and I had my fill by the end. And as somebody who loved Fallout 3, every Fallout since then has been a little less exciting because it's just more Fallout. What does Starfield look like? But we won't know. And yes, everyone's hype should be somewhere. But the idea is that it's a Todd Howard game that's suddenly exclusive to Xbox, and that's crazy.
Yeah, and I think Matt is in the right place. I think you should be a cautious consumer in all things, and so I think you're totally fine to be like, yeah, I'm not there, right? The hype doesn't make sense to me. I think there are fans of studios. I would put myself in that camp of like, I'm super hyped for Starfield. I'm looking forward to it, but it's for the reasons you just said, Greg, of like, it is the next RPG from that studio, from the mind of Todd Howard. It's going to be in space. I mentioned earlier playing Mass Effect and thinking about like the thing that like the one hindrance for me with Mass Effect right now is the fact that it is an older game, and so I'm dealing with a lot of older gameplay mechanics, older combat, and all that stuff. And I know that stuff.
Man, how do you like that Mass Effect inventory and upgrades?
Oh, it's terrible. Oh my god! And I can't. I know when I get into Mass Effect 2 and 3, it's going to be better probably. Yeah. But even still,
it
will
be. It will be.
Like I'm playing old games right now, but the idea of it has me excited for what a new like iteration of that could be like, right? Starfield, you imagine, is going to be Mass Effect-esque somewhat. It's a space RPG from a studio that does similar types of big Western RPGs. And so yeah, like I'm super excited for it, but it's that same thing of like, always keep in mind that it could be a Mass Effect, or it could be an Andromeda, or it could be not the greatest thing since sliced bread. In fact, it probably won't be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I think you can be excited at the same time also. But I also understand being cautious, and you should be.
Kyle, you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kyle, do you agree that patreon.com/kindoffunnygames is a great place?
Oh, undoubtedly so.
Ladies and gentlemen, you should go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. You could write into the show just like so many other people just did, like Game Guy Grover. Shout out to my boy Grover back there.
The blue guy from Elmo.
The blue guy from Elmo, yes. Of course, over there, like I said, you could be watching live as we record it, like so many of you still are, like Joshy G, Louise, and the Lou. Of course, you can get the show ad-free. But guess what, Jack? You didn't go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames for some reason. So let Tim tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Canva Pro. Canva Pro is the easy-to-use design platform that has everything you need to design like a pro, and it will elevate your content. Here's what I love about Canva Pro. It kind of just allows you to take all the busy work, all the stuff you don't want to do out of design and get to what actually matters, and that's making the content that you love. Whether it's thumbnails, whether it's social posts or whatever, there's a ton of stuff to check out with Canva Pro, and it just makes it easy, and it makes it fun, honestly. Whether you're a professional designer or just getting started, Canva Canva Pro can help boost you and your team's productivity and creativity. It's a quick, easy, and affordable way to design whatever you need. It's been super helpful even for us at Kind of Funny. No matter what you're creating and sharing, Canva Pro has everything you need in one place, including a collection of over 75 million premium photos, videos, audio, and graphics, which are totally going to step up your content game. It's fantastic stuff. My favorite feature of Canva Pro is just being able to go and just look at all the fun stuff that they have, because it just gets your brain ticking. It gets you thinking creatively about what are other cool things that you can do and put out in the world. Share on that Instagram. You know what I'm talking about? You can design like a pro with Canva Pro. Right now, you can get a free 45-day extended trial when you use the promo code. Just go to canva.me/KFgames to get your free 45-day extended trial. That's canva.me/KFgames. Canva.me/KFgames. Next up, shout out to Honey. Honey is one of my favorite things, honestly, in the world. It's so easy. You install it once and it's just saving you money every single time you shop online. And we all shop online. We've all seen the promo code field taunt us at checkout, but thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one that it finds to your cart. They support over 30,000 stores online, and it ranges from everything like an Etsy all the way up to a Best Buy, everything in between. It's never let me down. It's just saved me a ton of money. Imagine you're shopping on one of your favorite sites. When you check out, the Honey button drops down, and all you have to do is click apply coupons. You wait a few seconds, the little Honey guy does a little dance, and then boom, you're saving that moolah, that dinero. You know what's up. If Honey finds a working coupon, the price is going to drop, and it's fantastic stuff. I've saved so much money on hue lights and things with Honey. It's just great. If you don't already have Honey, you're straight up missing out on free savings. It's literally free and installs in a few seconds. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this podcast. I would recommend it if I didn't love it, and I do. I love it very, very much, and I have for many, many years. You can get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/kinda. That's joinhoney.com/kinda. Finally, shout out to Upstart. When it comes to paying off debt, it can often feel like an uphill battle. High interest rates resulting in minimum monthly payments keeps you in an endless cycle of debt. Upstart can help you get ahead. If you're carrying a credit card balance month after month, it can get pretty daunting. One of my friends, all he had to do was use Upstart here. It consolidated the debt, just made it easier for him to wrap his head around, and now he's debt free. Everything's awesome. You can find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/kindafunny. That's upstart.com/kindafunny. Don't forget to use the URL that we're talking about right here, upstart.com/kindafunny, so they know that we sent them. Yeah. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/kindafunny. That's upstart.com/kindafunny.
Blessing, give me some of these PlayStation updates.
Yeah, so we already talked about the 25 games coming to PlayStation 5 over the course of I assume this is over the course of the generation. They didn't really specify.
They didn't, yeah. They said right now there's 25 PlayStation Studios things for PlayStation 5 happening. That's what they.
Do you guys have any more to say on that? Like, I think that's a cool one. It's kind of hard to speculate.
Yeah, the exciting thing for that is, I think that over half are brand new IPs. That is super exciting. One of my favorite things PlayStation does is every so often they'll put up like a banner of the PlayStation mascots and the characters. Like, here are these people's stories that are here, and I'm so excited to have more characters that I hopefully and we all hopefully fall in love with added to that long lineup of just stellar characters, in addition to ones already this year in Celine and Returnal and Rivet and Ratchet and Clank. I can already tell it's going to be up there. So just give me more new characters, new fresh stories, and I'm so excited for what that is, and hopefully, like, I believe one of those is like Kina, for example. Like, we know that's coming out and whatever that is on PlayStation. Like, I'm excited for that character and brand new IP and stuff. So,
well, I think what's cool about it when you read that Wired article and Herman talks about, just jumping into the Wired article just for there, it's Peter Rubin's interview. It was with Jim Ryan, Herman, of course, Herman, friend of the show, and now head of Worldwide or PlayStation Studios. I'm never going to be able to not say Worldwide. Anyways, though, the group has more than 25 titles in development for the PS5, nearly half of which are entirely entirely new IP. Quote, there's an incredible amount of variety originating from different regions, Herman said. Big, small, different genres. As in many of those cases, Sony's shared services became a lifeline for studio. And it goes on to talk about everybody working from home and Guerrilla. But it's more the idea that there's 25 titles in development for PlayStation 5 under the PlayStation Studios banner. So exclusively, right? And it is that idea that, yes, this covers Sony worldwide. Yes, this probably covers a bigger game like something like Returnal. But yeah, how big is Kena? How big are the other stuff we don't know about? What are these new things? How quick are they going to hit? What are they going to be? Are they going to be experimental? Are they going to fill some of that, weird PlayStation love we all like to have?
Yeah. In my head, like, I think we see a lot of Returnals in terms of scope and like I guess weirdness of them, but we'll also see like see like $40 games and $30 games and stuff in that range.
Yes.
I think they're gonna play around with it.
Is Forspoken gonna be one of those from the Square Enix game?
I don't think so. I assume that's gonna be published by Square Enix.
Sure.
I think
Sure.
like PlayStation Studios is purely more of a publishing thing than anything. Because I think I had the question of Bugsnax too, because Bugsnax was PlayStation exclusive at launch, and turns out that was self-published, and so that didn't fall into the thing. Like, it's very much we're PlayStation and we're owning this title as a publishing thing. And you imagine that they'll also own the IP. I assume, this is a big assumption I'm making, but Returnal, I assume that's a PlayStation IP now.
Assumedly so, yeah. So then number two.
Well, I was gonna say, one more thing is, like, I remember mentioning during the whole Naughty Dog report that Jason Schreier put out a couple months ago. Like, one of the things I said was, like, I expect to see fewer new IP from PlayStation this next generation, and I'm happy to see that seems to be debunked by the statement. With a bit, like, I guess first party is a weird way to put it, because I still expect to see fewer new IP from first party necessarily, but PlayStation Studios as a brand and as with partnerships and all this stuff, we're gonna see. We're gonna see a lot of new IP apparently, and so I think that's very exciting.
100%.
Number two, you should care about the DualSense. Greg, I'm gonna pass this one on to you because you're the one that added this one.
Do we need to bring in Mike so he can listen to this and stuff like that?
No, you can lead a horse to water 300 times and you can't force it to drink. And Snowbike Mike wants to sit there and be like, "Oh, who's Galactus? And I hate this controller. It vibrates my hands." Like, we don't need this. We don't need this.
Is John Travolta something?
Hey, bada bing. I don't have many accents. All right. Why am I doing an accent for Snowbike Mike from Tahoe? I don't know, but I was. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I put this on here earlier. We had been kicking around the idea of topic of the show, right? And before Jeff Grub wanted to get out there and do his whole shebang here. One of them was I was thinking about titling this one, "You Should Care About the DualSense," and bringing in a conversation in the news, right? So the conversation being, of course, how fucking great the DualSense is on Returnal. The fact that it's even like over the weekend I was playing more Returnal and just weeks with that game now and still being like, oh my god, like this fucking I guess it's part of this conversation comes from if you listen to the content before we get here, right? They're announcing features and they're drip feeding all this stuff through interviews and PlayStation blogs. There was, for me at least, this thing. I'm like, all right, cool, Rumble. It's got Rumble. It's got HD Rumble. I can count the ice cubes like on Nintendo Switch or whatever. What the fuck are they talking about? Adaptive triggers? Who cares? To be here now and I feel like be a believer. Number one from Returnal, which number one would be, I guess, Astro, right? But like more recently, Returnal, and be like, holy shit, this actually does change the experience in a way that this whole conversation we've had again and again of, is it worth $70? Yes, and I think the controller is part of that. I think the fact that it is this experience that's been massaged to hit on so many different levels works for it. But then coming off of last week's PS I Love You XOXO, which was the Ratchet and Clank preview, right, and talking there about how they're using the DualSense in terms of alt fires on the triggers similar to Returnal, so you're getting more out of your gun with one trigger press, right? Then on top of that, since we've been gone, them announcing 2 new colors for the DualSense, right? Midnight Black,
colors,
Cosmic Crimson. Good. I wish Cosmic Crimson was more red. Like, I like that bright red. My PlayStation 4 controllers are either bright red or bright blue. Like, those are the ones I had. So it's like,
this is the future. These are futuristic colors,
dude. I think Midnight Black looks awesome. So don't get me wrong. I'm not here talking shit. But then on top of that blessing, to jump off of all of that, they put up a whole bunch of stuff on PlayStation blog last week. Devs reveal their upcoming DualSense wireless controller implementations. This is one you added to it, right? That is out there. And to me, it's that funny thing of, I remember when it went up and I read through it initially and I was like, yeah, okay, more marketing speak. But then it was this reflection of like, well, Ratchet seems awesome, and Returnal's awesome, and Astra's awesome. What stood out to you on this one?
Yeah, so like I've not even gone through the whole article because they go through a lot of games that I'm not necessarily like. They have Subnautica Below Zero here, and I'm like, I don't really care how the DualSense works in Subnautica Below Zero, but like they had more things to say about some new games that are super exciting. And so like, let's start off Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart here, and the whole thing is it's different developers talking about how they're using it in their game or how the DualSense has inspired functionality in their games. And so Insomniac Games starts off here by saying, we love how the fidelity of the controller's haptics allow us to give so many things in the world a distinct feel, and range allows us to support bombastic responses like explosions all the way down to footsteps without the sensation getting old. Although firing weapons and striking different surfaces with your wrench were no-brainers for haptics, we found that we could also use many more subtle cues that make the haptics canvas feel full. For example, the simple act of picking up bolts from a defeated enemy is that much more satisfying when you feel an impulse from each on in your hands, complemented by a subtle controller sound. Simply using the weapon wheel or scanning the map become more enjoyable when you feel a faint click as you highlight objects. And that's the one that excites me a lot, because Ratchet and Clank, I've always loved the feeling of collecting bolts. That has been that's maybe my favorite thing about Ratchet and Clank, is that they all attract, like they all magnetize toward you. And so it's this awesome feeling of like, it's that collectathon feeling of like getting a bunch of currency and it all kind of flows to you, just like Obolites and Returnal actually had the same thought with that too. But the idea that that's going to reflect in the DualSense, I was like, oh yeah, let's freaking go. I'm into that.
Yeah.
Also here's Life is Strange True Colors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Deck9 had this to say. At its core, Life is Strange True Colors is about connecting with people through Alex Chen's psychic power of empathy. Alex's supernatural ability allows her to view and experience the strong emotions of others through their brightly colored auras. And so the burning red of anger, sharp purple of fear, deep blue of sadness, and shining gold of joy will all blaze into life through the new light bar as you connect with each of them. As you explore the streets and spaces of Haven Springs, reaching out with Alex's growing power, using the left trigger, you'll find the trigger feedback strength ramps up as the power builds up in intensity, haptically hinting at the volatile, supernatural sense that's just barely under Alex's control. Even as Alex becomes more confident in her power across the arc of the game, it's never something she taps into lightly. And so that's super awesome. And then there was one other one. Tina Bridget Spirits was the other one I wanted to highlight. This is Ember Lab. Development with the DualSense controller has allowed us to add a deeper level of immersion to the experience in Kina. As a spirit guide, Kina can transform her staff into a bow, and this mechanic takes full advantage of the DualSense adaptive triggers. When Kina draws her bow, players can feel resistance.
I'm glad the DualSense is finally being talked about in a bow and arrow sense. That's really good.
Yeah, I would never have thought of this example. When Kina draws her bow, players can feel the resistance of triggers as the wood bends and strains under pressure. In combination with the haptic feedback, the player has the sensation of drawing a bow. And here's my thing, all right? I've been sold with the bow strings, or the drawing a bow with the DualSense, especially after playing the game I loved last fall, Pathless. Pathless, I thought did it really well. And so, yeah, the DualSense is super awesome. I will add in a but. Greg, I am very sad to report, over the last week, my DualSense has been experiencing DualShock Drift.
What is going on?
DualSense Drift.
You're talking about this. Brian at PS5 Trophies. He just went through he's on to his third. I think he was talking about or something.
Really?
All these problems he's had with it. Yeah, and I think PS5 in general is all garbagey for him.
Yeah, I think
Chef Mike too.
My cross button, my X button, got real sticky. Like out of nowhere.
Okay, so, but you can't blame PlayStation for that.
No, I can't. No, I just press the button too hard when I'm swinging balls and never with the show. But yeah,
what are you eating while playing the DualSense? That's the big question.
I don't eat anything. They're white controllers. Okay. I know better.
But yeah, like the drift was like really bad actually. Like it was affecting. At first I thought it was just the game I was playing, and then I hopped into a bunch of other games, and yeah, it was like it would always be slightly off. Like it seemed like there was detection going on, and like slightly off center toward the north of my DualSense, and it would trigger often, and got bad when I was playing Apex. It became a problem because I would be trying to hide behind cover, and then all of a sudden Lifeline starts like tiptoeing out of the cover, and I'm like, no, not that, no. And so thankfully I have a backup DualSense, but I can't use that controller anymore regularly.
That's fucked up, man. Just in time for you to buy the black one though.
Yeah, no, that's the exciting thing. That now
it was in the last firmware update. they secretly updated the controller to.
Yeah,
include
sure.
the
That's
drift
why I don't do it. Every time it
abilities.
pops up, do you want to do this? Or notify in 24 hours. I'm like, notify in 24 hours.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
not getting up and plugging in a USB-C to this thing. All right. Just let it chill over here.
But yeah, I gotta
yeah.
take back. Like I want to say like a couple months ago when we first started talking about DualSense Drift, I was of the mind of like, I'm sure that's probably like at every 1 out of 100 controllers kind of thing. It might be still. Maybe I'm just very unlucky, but yeah, no, like it's real. Like it's real, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's crazy to see it starting to spread because, yeah, like I said, Brian, who's at PS5 Trophies _ on Twitter, says things just keep getting worse. My second second DualSense controller I had to buy because the original doesn't work. Also doesn't work now. And then, yeah, he earlier than that, he said, my PS5 is forcing me into another factory reset, FML. I just can't do it again. Ask PlayStation, is it still 2 to 3 weeks for a replacement? Because I really can't do that either. It's outrageous, man.
These are the woes of being an early adopter.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye on that stuff. Over at the trophy room, are you hearing similar things, Kyle? Are you getting a lot of people talking about it?
Yeah, we have a couple of community members talking about the DualSense Drift, which is a big bummer. You never want to just wander out into the middle of a heated battle.
No, never.
In the game. No, it's a bad look. Hopefully it gets fixed and it's not like a rampant thing, like a normal, like every PlayStation gamer is going to run into that.
Sure, yeah, 100%. But yeah, that was the thing of like, scrolling through it again, like it was that, okay, cool, like, all right, whatever. Again, I was with you. Subnautica Below Zero, great, whatever. And it's like Ratchet, I already knew about. Then the Ghostwire Tokyo stuff, then talking about Life is Strange. I was like, damn, all right, cool. I'm excited to see how people take advantage of it. And it seems like they are. And maybe not and clearly not every game will. But the ones that do really seem to be doing cool stuff with it.
Yeah. And I like that they're reaching out to devs that aren't making PlayStation exclusives or like first party stuff. Like Life is Strange is a very good one to point out and have right for the blog, because that's one that I would have assumed just wouldn't really use the functionality. And like, of course, it ranges from how deeply developers decide to use the DualSense. Like Resident Evil Village used it, but it wasn't life changing at all. And I don't assume like Life is Strange is going to be life changing when it uses it, but having them actually talk about it and feel the fact that it seems like devs are feeling empowered enough to give it a chance and find ways in which they can enhance the experience of playing. I think that's a really cool thing.
Now, speaking of DualSense upgrades, blessing Greg Way, what's the next PlayStation update there?
The next PlayStation.
You said that you wrote hold for PS Picks.
Yeah, I was gonna hold this for PlayStation Picks, but I can just throw it in here.
Everybody, we're in PlayStation Picks.
PlayStation Picks, of course. This is where we highlight a few of the cool-looking games coming to PSN this week. Starting with the big hitters, being Days Gone is coming to PC, so not PSN, but still it's a PlayStation game coming out.
And it's the game you're supposed to be playing this month, right? So we can talk about it next month.
Yeah, it is. It's Tuesday, May 18th. Let me tell you, as each day passes, I'm like, fuck, I should play more Days Gone, and I never get to it.
I see you have it blocked out on the calendar.
Yeah, I unblocked it out because I gotta play something else during that time, and so like, we'll see, man. We'll see when I get there.
You're never getting through Days Gone.
But then Rust is coming out.
50 hours, no big deal.
Rust is coming out PlayStation 4. We shouldn't have assigned that game the same month as Mass Effect, because
I told you. You wanted it. You were well, not you actually. Who was it? Nick Verge. He wanted it. Here we are, living in this nightmare. I've already done it. I'm fine.
Rust is coming out on PlayStation 4 Friday, May 21st, and then Manifold Garden is coming out on PlayStation 5 on Thursday, May 20th. And that game sounds familiar. It's because it's a game that I won't stop talking about. I did a whole blessing show about Manifold Garden and puzzle games in general. Manifold Garden I talked about also a lot last year when it came out to PS4, and it was probably on my short list for Game of the Year. I've talked about this game a lot, but the reason why I wanted to highlight this one specifically is because, this is a PS5 upgrade, and the dev for Manifold Garden talked a lot about what the upgrade looks like, how it's going to look better for the PS5 edition. So that's coming out, like I said, May 20th. If you own the PS4 version of the game or the PS4 Deluxe Edition, you'll be able to upgrade the game for free. The PS5 version of the game runs at a native 4K at 60 FPS and loads very fast. If you want to load the game even faster, you can resume from an activity card and begin playing the game within 5 seconds. I'm going to start talking from first person as if I'm the developer of the game, because I'm reading directly from them. We've also taken full advantage of the haptics made possible by the DualSense wireless controller. Additionally, the entire title supports the official game help feature for eligible PlayStation Plus subscribers. Every puzzle in the main progression of the game is fully documented in solution videos without showing you puzzles you haven't already seen. And that's the thing I should probably shout out, because this is a first-person puzzle game, if you weren't aware. Everything is very... do either you guys know the name of the artist that does like the stairs, like the looping
MC
stairs?
Escher.
Yes, it's very MC
Oh no,
Escher-esque.
crazy stairs. That's a Family Guy
It's a
reference.
Family Guy
Going
thing.
up the stairs, going down the stairs, going up the sideways stairs.
But yeah, that's the whole
Come
thing. Is
throw
like
the bee.
the game takes place in like a looping world, and so like you'll hop off of a building, and then like you'll keep falling forever until you land back on a surface, and like everything rotates in a way. It's really cool. It's a really cool game. He continues here, the developer. So what does the extra fidelity of the PS5 version look like in practice for Manifold Garden? A core part of the game is traversing through beautiful and impossible architecture, so we're thrilled that players can experience the world as it was meant to be viewed in full 4K. One of our favorite enhancements for the PlayStation 5 version is the haptic feedback on the DualSense wireless controller. This technology has allowed us to make the game even more immersive. When you open a door that's far away, you'll experience a faint pulse. Likewise, when a laser moves from one side to the one side of the screen to the other, you'll feel that same direction mirrored in the controller. There's even a particular moment in the game where the geometry appears to be corrupted, and the haptic feedback that accompanies this really captures the feeling of a world being torn apart. And so that's cool for two reasons. One, the game is on next gen, is going to have all these enhancements. You should definitely check out the game. But then also cool because, as I was talking about earlier, right, developers feeling empowered to actually use this stuff, and it seems like they're feeling that here. And so
I like that it's gonna use the PlayStation help cards too.
yeah, that's
somebody
super
who
awesome.
I was too intimidated to start Manifold Garden when we were talking about it compared to Maquette. Yeah,
Maquette,
where I was like, oh, it's actually a good job, and I never got stumped. You're like, oh, well, Manifold Garden will stump you. I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. Check out Manifold Garden. Check out the Blessing show about Manifold Garden. I forget what that one was titled. It was titled about puzzle games, but we talk a lot about Manifold Garden.
It's,
And interview the
puzzle
developer.
games, how they work, and then also the Manifold Garden interview, which is just a really great whole interview. That was kind of like a Blessing show, like one-off kind
bonus.
of thing.
Yeah. So check-
YouTube.com/kindafunnygame.
Hell yeah. As far as the actual PlayStation picks, let's start off with Aerial Knights Never Yield. If that one sounds familiar, that's because that was revealed at a recent Nintendo Indie stream, Nintendo Indie World Showcase, I should say. That's coming out for PS4 and PS5 on Wednesday, May 19th. Survive a futuristic Tokyo-style Detroit in this 3D runner that tells the story of Wally, who has uncovered the evidence that can change his city forever. Explore a game world with a dope-tastic soundtrack featuring the authentic sounds of Detroit artists. And this is one that I think we're all excited for. It looks really cool. The style of it is super dope.
100%. Yeah, when we saw this at that Switch presentation, it was like, oh my god, this looks so cool. And then obviously the guy who's Aerial Knight is so cool. When I followed him on Twitter, he's super rad. Like, I can't wait for this. Kyle, did this move the needle for you, especially with the indie podcast?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love runners. Big fan of I don't know if it's got a huge like cult following, but probably not. Funk of Titans was like a Vita and PS3 game. That's like a runner. I really enjoyed that, so I'm super excited for this. And I, like you said, Greg, I love Aerial Knight and how he opened that up. Like, I'm gonna make room in this industry that previously hasn't made room for me. Like, that's so awesome.
Super awesome.
I can't wait for this.
Same. We also got Knockout City. This is coming to PlayStation 4 Wednesday, May 19th. Team up and duke it out with rival crews in Knockout City, where epic dodgeball battles settle the score in team-based multiplayer matches. Throw, catch, pass, dodge, and tackle your way to dodgeball dominance. This is the one that's being published by EA, and has had plenty of, I guess, open betas or early access stuff go up, and plenty of people have gotten their hands on it already, and I know plenty of people have a lot of good things to say about this game. It looks really
I'm excited
fun.
for this. And it's worth pointing out too that like for Knockout City here for this first weekend, where they call it Knockout block party, where like the first 10 days are free. So even it's on Game Pass over on Xbox, but even for PlayStation, it's cross-platform. Even for PlayStation users, you can jump in as soon as it comes out this week and play for free for 10 days. There's no gating, they say. There's nothing like, you're not locked out of a mode or anything or level capped. It's literally the entire game. Go play. So it's one of those you have nothing to lose. And again, Mike's preview of it on the Xcast had got me excited. And then Golden Boy, one of my E3 co-hosts, Alex, had been putting out videos about it. And I was like, damn, this actually looks kind of neat and fun.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there in terms of the PlayStation picks, the hype ones, because this last one is one that I am super excited about. It's a game called Just Die Already. It's coming out on PlayStation 4 Thursday, May 20th. Just Die Already is an old people mayhem sandbox created by the designers of Goat Simulator. You're old and angry, and you've just been kicked out of your retirement home. how will you survive in a world that wants you to just die already? And if you look at it, it looks like Goat Simulator but with old people. And I couldn't be more excited for this game. I didn't realize this was coming out so soon.
Yeah, me neither. This is one that we had seen again in a different presentation that I thought looked funny as hell, and now here it is. Amazing.
Was this the game that did the Kojima thing?
I think so. Yeah.
They had like a bit like at the end of their first trailer that was, I forget if it was calling out Kojima or like they were saying something about like we emailed Kojima or something like that. I forget what they said.
It was funny though.
Yeah, I'm in for just like a dumb turn your brain off kind of game. And these simulator games, especially like Goat Simulator, those are the bread and butter for that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very this release month has been ridiculous for video games because all three of these games this week I really want to play. Like these are all exciting games to me, and that is within a season of a lot of exciting games to play, which probably will take us to our next segment.
Speaking of that segment, Kyle Stephenson,
yes.
What you been playing lately?
Started up Mass Effect Legendary Edition finally last night.
Now here's the thing: you're a big Mass Effect guy.
I previously over at the trophy room, there was one comment on the YouTube video, which I know never look at the comments, but somebody was like, gatekeeping, saying like, "Oh, Kyle's never played the first one. You can't say you're excited and you're a Mass Effect fan." So, to the gatekeepers, shut the fuck up, go away, no one likes you. I was excited to finally start into Mass Effect 1 and really understand where this franchise has started and the story that I love in 2 and really like in 3 began. And I'm not too far in it, but you've mentioned like the inventory and upgrade thing. Like, oh boy,
it's old, right? Yeah.
It's like actively making me like less excited to open up the menu and go through and see these all cool things. But the characters, the story so far, and seeing Saren for the first time and his whole thing at the very beginning is like, oh man, I'm excited. Like the story so quickly just pulls you in. And
they do a great job, of everybody writing, this return to the space opera. And if you don't know what that means, like it's like a soap opera, right? And they do such a great job of building up these characters and hooking them. And, I'm in a similar boat to you that I would consider myself a Mass Effect fan. I loved Mass Effect 2. I enjoyed Mass Effect 3. I didn't like have, run to Twitter anger.
You
at
hated the ending
of the ending, right?
And you tweeted it.
But like Mass Effect 1, I tried a bunch of times and never gone all the way through with it. But that was at launch. That was when I was playing at the time. So to come back now and be back as my shepherd, and even though I'm trying to make different decisions and do different things, but to be meeting characters I know so well from my adventures in 2 and 3 is helping me be more into this than it was the first times when they drop you into it. And at the time I was like, I'm a what? I'm a who? Who are you? What's this race of aliens? Yada, yada, yada. The fact that Mass Effect 2 clicked for me and got me so deep into it, coming back to it, obviously years and years later, I'm in the same boat of going through and be like, oh man, like, yeah, let's go. And here's Joker. And they're talking and doing this meeting. And I've already played it, I think, further than I had in my actual times, but going to random planets and clearing off the objectives and doing the whole thing and yada, yada, yada.
Like meeting Ashley for the first time and seeing how different of a character she is in 3.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, this is a different person.
That Ashley girl needs to sort through some things.
Space racist. It's been known for a long time.
Yeah, I'm like, this girl is kind of racist. Like, wow. She was really mean to those aliens when I talked to her. I was like, damn, girl, you got to calm down.
Blessing, this is your first time playing Mass Effect. How's it feeling for you? And like you didn't play 2 or 3 or anything, right?
Yeah, no, like I played like maybe the first hour or so of 2, but that's the most Mass Effect that I ever played. And so this is my first time really getting into it. And I am about 11 hours in and I'm having a blast with it. I assume that I'm like halfway through the game. Like I've made it. There's like a point in the game where they're kind of like, all right, go out and do the things that you need to do, and I've done most of that. And so I'm having a blast. Like it's that thing of I have like a weird nostalgia playing it, not because I've played Mass Effect, but because I've played, I guess, games from 2006 or 7, whatever this came out. And so I'm having that thing of like, oh yeah, games did used to control like this, or oh yeah, like dialogue used to be this way. But it's still that fun thing of really enjoying what the dialogue is and enjoying what the story is and how they're building out this world. It's fascinating jumping from Disco Elysium into this game, because Disco Elysium is a game that goes so heavy on writing and dialogue and the politics of its world. And Mass Effect, I think in a similar way, has a very well built out universe that they have, at least so far from where I'm at in the game. Like I've been really enjoying getting to know the different races of aliens and the I forgot what they call them, but like the more like politically powerful races of aliens versus the other ones, and like getting to know Rex and
Oh,
Rex
like the
being,
council, like the Citadel.
yeah, like the council and stuff like that, and like getting to know Rex and him talking about how his people were like essentially wiped out and all this stuff, and
Yeah, the genophage.
yeah, and then talking to or learning what what specters are. Like there's a lot of cool concepts that are thrown out there that I'm excited to explore and get to know even more. And it's been a battle of enjoying that stuff so much, but then just not enjoying the gameplay. Like
Really?
yeah, the menus are so bad, the upgrade systems are so bad, and so much of this I just chalk up to it being an old game, and so it's hard for me to, like
it's like
it's hard for me to get mad at the
KOTOR
game.
vibes of fucking
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
So.
yeah.
And like the combat feels so stiff, but like I'm not hating it.
How many times have you pressed in L3 to sprint and you just crash?
Oh my!
Oh, it took me 4 fucking hours to find out what the sprint button was, y'all. I never tried X out of all fucking buttons, and I finally found. I was convinced that there just wasn't a sprint.
button,
I was like, I guess this is no sprint in this game, and I finally found it last night. Jesus Christ!
The controls in the game are so whack, and you can't remap them, at least on PlayStation. And so like I rolled
I
with
think you
it,
can't
and
PC either. That was one of the big knocks against PC. So
Oh,
I think
wow,
you're
yeah.
stuck with it across the board.
And so I've grown accustomed to it, and now being 11 hours into the game, I'm very used to it. But it's that thing where I know so much of this is Mass Effect 1 specifically, and I've heard so many people be like, no, it gets better with Mass Effect 2. They improve so much stuff, and so I'm looking forward. I'm kind of just trying to truck through Mass Effect 1 so I can get to the later ones and maybe like enjoy my time more in those ones and spend more time.
And
more time
that
in
was
those ones.
for me personally, playing it right now and enjoying it. I'm in the same boat of like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I remember how dated this was, and I remember that being a selling point for me with Mass Effect 2. Is that Mass Effect 2? Obviously, they went through and touched up all the menus we're talking about and talking shit about right now, but it was also the idea that it went from being like so RPG more towards being action. And I think some people argue Mass Effect 3 went too far with it. Mass Effect 2, I felt, was the right combination of it, and so like I'm right there with you of like. I'm enjoying the story again so much and talking to these people. And again, it's the story that I know, but I know from, the recap of Mass Effect 2 and then playing Mass Effect 2 and 3 and knowing what happened and talking to people who are super obsessed with it and all these different things happening with it. But it is that idea now of just like, but man, these menus, it's so funny to play something that feels that dated, because I remember Mass Effect 1 and playing it on Xbox 360, and I remember at the time having conversations with IGN people, and I remember it feeling so huge, and I remember it feeling so vast, and like to run around the Citadel in 2021 and be like, oh, go here, go there, go there. I'm fast traveling everywhere. There's like 4 different people that you run into. I'm like, wow, this is this is a different time than it was back then, to be tossed in 2007, 2008 and be like, what is happening and what is all this history and who are all these people and what's a Reaper and what's a mass relay and how do we get, like, to have all that information on lock and then just be able to focus on the game is a different thing.
Yeah, and I definitely playing it through. I'm like, I could see how in 2000, whenever this game came out, 2006, I assume is when Mass Effect 1 came out.
No, I was at IGN when it did, so I want to say
So
it's 2007, but it
yeah.
might have been 2008.
Wait,
Is that what it was?
Okay, well, either way, like I can imagine it feeling somewhat like revolutionary or at least like big when it came out, because the story does feel like it is, or the world feels like it's very well built out. I've enjoyed reading through the codex so much and getting an understanding of what the world is like and the world structure and
the lore and shit like that.
the lore,
The
how the
lore.
different aliens work together and all
November
Yeah, November
20th,
20th, 2007. There we are, Barrett.
2007, gotcha.
Same wavelength there, buddy. Yeah, it's been cool playing it for the very first time.
Did you play Mass Effect 2 or 3, Barrett?
No, I had never touched any of them, and this is not because I'm a young kid who never understood what Mass Effect was. Jeff Grubb. It was just because I
No, we
wasn't-
have a truce with him now.
No,
No,
you have a
remember
truce
Barrett
with him.
didn't. Yeah, Barrett
You
didn't
have a
agree to
truce
this.
with him.
That's fair. That's
He
fair.
is a
You
forever
wanted a truce.
fucking enemy
Barrett
for
said
me.
he will not do it.
I choose chaos every fucking day when I wake up. And that's it. I was just not as into video games in high school, as I've talked about plenty of times. But I knew what Mass Effect was, and like all of my friends were super into it. They loved all like the kind of major RPGs that were coming out during high school, and so it was one like I would listen to my friends kind of like just gush about. But yeah, never got into myself. And so yeah, it's been cool playing like for the first couple hours, and I echo a lot of like some of the old game feel frustrations and stuff like that. But even so, like walking around the Citadel in 2021, right? It's like, yeah, it does feel like a little empty, but it's still kind of cool, and like just like picking up
cool.
like random side quests where like I kind of helped out like this religious zealot pink fucking looking dude, and I was like, oh, I'll get you your permit, like whatever, like I'll pay for it. Do whatever you want, buddy. And just like little things like that have been like really cool. And then like leaving the Citadel last night and getting that like that kind of like really like it felt like almost like a Star Trek moment of like get fucking hype about like moving up in the ranks and like kind of like the kind of political things of being space adventures and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that. So, yeah, I want to power through this one, just because mechanically, yeah, it can get frustrating, and driving around in the Mako or whatever the fuck you call it, just absolute garbage.
Yeah, trash.
You like that one stick movement steering?
So
why is it like driving on ice? And why does it keep like? Why is there no like front of it?
it's just it's like tank controls, but like very fluid.
It's
tank
all
controls.
terrain, guys. It can go in any terrain in any direction.
Oh god!
Why did they make it control like that? Yeah,
Think how bad it was in the original game then if they reworked it.
Yeah, the fact that this
make
is
it
the
suck.
reworked version, like, oof. But yeah, like at least like story wise and getting to know my like my group, like having like Garrus and Rex kind of be my my angel and devil on my shoulders and stuff like that, and I fucking love it. The story and the characters that are being built up so far. So yeah, I want to stick through this one at least to get to 2. And shout out to youtube.com/minmax. Who are doing a deep dive. Their deepest dive is going to be on Mass Effect 1, which is kind of like what is going to motivate me to like slowly like get through this game and not like feel burnt out by it and like kind of take it in chunks. So yeah, shout out to them for that.
Also, I want to bring up the Paragon Renegade system because that's the thing that's confused me a little bit. Because like I'm trying to play as Renegade, but I keep getting Paragon points, and I don't understand why.
Too good.
You're too nice.
Good. You're making the good choices.
Whenever
Yeah.
They just throw out those things. Like they give away Paragon points, and I'm like, no, I want to be an asshole.
Then
like I want to be
an
like
asshole,
a.
Bless. This is when like
I'm
you try to
trying.
make fun of people and like you're too nice about it. And this is like so like I am totally imagining you're like, oh yeah, this totally sounds mean, but it's actually like the nice option. And, like,
Yeah, plus 5 Paragon points. I'm like, no, I want to be the
Damn it,
asshole.
I want to be a badass.
Yeah.
Kyle,
Are we
playing
going?
Paragon
Are we
Renegade?
going? No, I'm always Paragon. I find it very hard to be an asshole in a game. There's just something about it.
Same.
Dude, I can't believe that. Like it's yeah, I know, like, you know, you look through it, you see people like Andrea or Steimer talking about it and how it's like their whatever double digit playthrough of it, and how, you know, the memes and the jokes about how like, oh, they try to do it different and then they end up being the same. Like for me, I went in there, I made my femshep, I made her look similar to pretty much exactly what my femshep always looked like. But I was like, you know what, I'm gonna change the eye color, and I was like, I'm committing. She's gonna be a hard ass. She's gonna be Renegade. I'm not gonna just blindly pick Renegade, but I am gonna go that way. And sure as shit, I just keep going north and like being nice because it's like that's what my shepherd is.
Yeah. I wish. Here's my thing. I wish they gave more option for like a bit of wiggle room or like gray, because like my thing is I want my shepherd to be like, because the backstory of my shepherd, I wonder if I have it saved somewhere. I think I have the image somewhere, but like I picked the backstory where essentially she comes from like an army like background, like she's like a war hero essentially, but I want her to be like badass, like she gets shit done, right? She does what she needs to do to get shit done, and it's not necessarily immoral, but you know, I want her to like be respected and people to know that she is a badass. And I feel like that's not reflected as much as I want it to be. Like I think the dialogue choices leave enough room and leave enough space for me to kind of be that like in role playing. But the Paragon versus Renegade point system, I feel like just doesn't reflect that as much as I wanted to.
That's interesting because, like, I find it hard to be mean, but I do feel like I'm balancing that of like being nice and being respectful to others, but then also feel like bringing out this energy of like looking to be respected and getting shit done in my other like smaller choices. So that's interesting that you're trying to look for that and you're not getting it, whereas I am getting that, which again, I just think you're too nice, Blessing, and you just
maybe
it's
there
too
should
much
be like
in
a
your heart.
in between Paragon and Renegade. straight
Well,
shooter.
my thing about it, like, I feel like I like that they don't usually make, like, obviously there's different options that'll open up based on what you've done or who you are or whatever. But I like that it's not front facing of it. But I also wish that they didn't maybe throw it up in the corner, because I feel like it almost harkens back to what I always thought about Infamous 1 and Infamous 2, right? Except for the choice at the very end. But like, once I started being the good guy or the bad guy, like, that should just be a pick in the front, right? Because like, what's the point of it? Like, I like the idea if it's more of a gray system, like you're running into Blessing, where you're trying to be a badass, but you're being a good person. Like, then just remove it. Like, that was the thing of like, I know it opens up different options of being able to punch somebody or be able to do something, but like, it's always, and I know we're talking about an old game, but whenever games do this, I always feel like they're so like, not tacked on, but it's like, if you're gonna make it a binary choice that I have to do, like, it's even like you said KOTOR earlier, Barrett, right? Of like, to play through KOTOR and like to, I want to be light or I want to be good. Like, I'm making the choice. I'm going through and doing this. Like, then why even put it on there? Like, is there gonna be some story beat that really makes me, and hopefully there is, but makes me question it? I don't know, probably not. Like, I like it when it's gray and you're just going through and you're playing the way you're playing, and then you get to find out what you've been doing or who you are.
Yeah, I think that's something that Witcher 3 did really well. Is like they made so many choices complicated, and they gave you so many options in terms of like, yeah, like I can see it going either way, and you kind of got to commit in terms of making a choice to resolve the situation. And either way, you're kind of committing to something morally gray. But I think that made that game compelling in a way, and I like that kind of writing. Like Disco Elysium also does the thing where they don't have like good or bad, but they have binary political leanings they can lean into. But like the thing they do is that they really go hard in terms of boxing you into one, or not even boxing into one. Like they go hard in terms of like judging you based on what that thing is. And so like
And
they have like, we talked
calling
about
out those like political alignments and stuff like that.
yeah, because like you can go like fascist, you can go communist, you can go centrist, or you can go neoliberalism or whatever. And like all of like the thing I was talking about a few weeks ago with the game was like all of them feel so extreme, and like me trying to, and I think this is to the game's credit that the game was trying to do this, like me trying to understand like more before I made like a hard decision in terms of my political leaning led to the game being like, oh, you're a centrist, and I was like, damn it, that's not what I know. I just want to like list, I want to understand the world. But I think again, like the game kind of Disco Elysium twists that and kind of uses it in its own way versus like what you're talking about with Infamous, and what I think is a bit present with Mass Effect, and we'll even see in Fallout 3. Fallout 3 has like a similar good bad thing. Like I like the idea of the game keeping track in some way, but I do like the idea of that playing more of either a background or providing more reasons for it to feel like there's a spectrum and movement and gray to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I need the big plus Paragon, you know what I mean? Or plus Renegade points. Like, I don't need that kind of thing. I'd rather open it up and see, oh man, like they think I'm being an asshole, or however it's going to be, or however they characterize that. Yeah.
Or like factions too, a thing that I think do that well. Like Fallout New Vegas, where you have
Fallout New Vegas always did a great job with the gray area.
Yeah, multiple different factions, and you can like raise scores with one, lower scores with others, and I think that goes a long way in terms of creating like tension in terms of your choices and make you really think about stuff beyond I want to be good or bad.
Yeah, because especially with my short time with it, I'm already going through the motions of like exhausting all the investigate options, like in dialogue and doing all that, and then having the additional ones pop up because of that. And it's very much like the same thing over and over again, as far as like routine with every NPC that I come across. So I would love to just have like a very blanket right off the bat. You want to be a nice guy or an asshole to this person, and just right up front, and have that kind of change the course of all those investigation kind of conversations.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting way to do it for sure. Because right now, even as I'm like, tell me the history of your people. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Tell me all about it, Tally. What do you got going on? Yeah, but it's like, but it does become the same thing, right? And like, that is Mass Effect, and that is like, the narrative properties of it that people adore, understandably.
Yeah.
Kyle, what else have you been playing?
Beat RE Village the other day.
What'd you think?
I'm hot and cold on that game. Yeah. I'm new to Resident Evil this year. I over at the Trophy Room, we have a Patreon exclusive show called Road to Greatness. Patreon.com/PS Trophy Room, where we talk about we pick a game and decide whether it's worth your time and assign it like a trophy level. And the patrons voted on Resident Evil 4 for last month, and always thought I'd be too much of a scaredy cat for this game. Played RE4, not nearly as scary as I hyped it up to be. Just like a very action heavy game, and really loving that. Loving what Village showed. Immediately hopped into 7. Really dug that for the most part. I think once you get out of the house, it gets a little not nearly as tight and engrossing of a story.
Sure.
But like that basement in the Baker household is one of the scariest things I've ever played through ever. So playing through Village, I was hoping to get like some of those moments, and there are a couple, like the second biome. Not spoiling anything. Like I love that, and I wish there was more.
That
of
was
that.
my favorite one. Yeah.
But other than that, like I never felt pressed for ammo. I never felt pressed for. I think it maybe died once or twice throughout my entire gameplay of like 9 hours I beat the game in. I just wish there was more. Maybe it's obviously it's way worse on like harder difficulties on hardcore mode. Maybe but like I never felt worried and like you guys. I watched the Gamecast of the review, and you guys pointed it out perfectly. Like Ethan sucks. I don't like Ethan at all. It just like the overacting of like, why does everyone die around me, like those kind of very
why does this
cringy
keep
kind of
happening to me?
Why?
Yeah.
But like I love some of the characters in it. I think some of the performances. I really dig Heisenberg. I love that voice actor's performance of that character.
He's maybe my favorite character in the game.
Yeah. Even though it's very like.
He's taken from a different game.
Absolutely. Like I'm thinking like he's from Metal Gear. Like I totally could see him from a Kojima
and that's the
game.
exact reason why I love him so much. Is he feels like he was written by Kojima, and Ethan feels like he's just written by me. Like I don't know. It feels like somebody who's written by not a writer.
Yeah, but I dug most of it. It's a visual stunner. I love the audio side of things and hearing the creaks in the village while you're hiding from the lichens and whatnot. So. I'm excited for the future of it. I'm excited to keep deep diving into Resident Evil as a whole, and I hope they keep up. And I'm even like more intrigued at what the title of the next one is and how they're gonna hide the Roman numeral of 9 somewhere in that title.
The best one was just Resident Evil 6, but then like highlight the I and X. And 6.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really funny.
That'd be great.
I like that. I like that a lot. Bless, what have you been doing? Anything else?
No, I mean it's pretty much just Mass Effect,
Mass
and then
Effect,
the other thing I was going to talk about was my controller drift, but I already talked about that, so that's pretty much been it for me.
Yeah, for me, like I'm gonna only play Returnal until Mass Effect gets here, and then Mass Effect got here like 2 days later, and so then switched over to Mass Effect, and then it's been this interesting. I did Mass Effect for a while straight through, like I had fun with it. I haven't rolled credits on it, but it got to that point of like, okay, cool, I'm back in the Mass Effect groove of it or whatever, but I'm not feeling it. Like it's not what I'm being called to, and so like I had this little quick thing where I had a weekend going around a million different things where I did Mass Effect, but it wasn't hitting the way I wanted to. And what we had talked about it on the last show, or actually it might have been Gamescast, whenever the embargoes were up, I forget now, about playing Assassin's Creed. Oh, it was with Janet on Games Daily. Playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla's DLC, where I went back into that, and what is it? War of the Druids, Barrett? Is that right? War of the Druids?
I think it's Wrath of the Druid. You would know
Wrath
more than
of the
me.
Druids.
I haven't started it.
Oh,
yet.
I thought you started. Sorry.
No.
Jumped in there, you go to Ireland, and I was playing it, and like, whatever it is, I put 35 hours into Valhalla, like I said, and it was that thing of like, I liked Valhalla a lot. I didn't roll credits on that either, mainly because unlike Odyssey, like I just didn't connect with Eivor, and I thought the environments weren't as visually as exciting in terms of colors and differences a little bit. And so fell off of Valhalla with a positive impression of it. Put this on, I was like, maybe this will get me back into it, give me a storyline to go through it. And as I was playing it, I was like, again, I'm enjoying it. I'm not like hooked on the characters they're introducing, but the gameplay of Valhalla is so good. And I was like looking at the map and clearing points and all this stuff. And it was that moment though of like, but I really just want to play more Odyssey. And it's just that thing of like, there's still DLC in Odyssey that I haven't completed. I don't have all the Odyssey trophies. I have the platinum in Odyssey, but I don't have all the trophies for it or whatever. And so started the download of Odyssey and then went and did Returnal and had a bunch of great runs in Returnal this weekend. Just like, again, when that game fucking clicks and sings, God, I'm having a great time with Returnal. I love it. But it's also, I also feel like Returnal demands my energy and attention in a way I don't always have it, right? Where I feel like I did two runs the other night that were great. I'm in the second biome, got to the second biome boss, got him to third wave, died like, last second, one of those clutch, video game. Fuck. Like he changes up, if you haven't played Returnal, even though I'm sure you should, if you haven't played Returnal, like every wave, like, changes what the boss does a little bit. So your first couple times usually going through, it's about learning what they're doing. And so when I got to that second one, or third one, I should say, it was that idea of like, I got this, but you changed just a little bit. I wasn't expecting that. Fuck, I'm dead. But it was that thing of what I love about Returnal is I died and I was like, that was fucking awesome. That was an hour or whatever, 45 minutes well spent to do that all. And it was that thing I started and went again, but then it was, all right, I'm tired and I don't have a full run in me. So like, what do I want to do? Like, I want to keep playing games, but I don't have the energy to give this my whole thing. And so I'd also been feeling Oxenfree. So I re-downloaded Oxenfree. Yeah, because they announced that new Oxenfree or whatever, right? And I was like, oh man, I never finished Afterparty. And then I was like, you know what? Oxenfree, I had a bad experience with when I played it for way back in the day, right? Where I played it on PC, but the PC wasn't powerful enough, so I had a bad experience with that. And then when it came, by the time it came to PlayStation, I started and I wasn't feeling it. So I started Oxenfree again and was enjoying just chilling, vibing, making dialogue selections, going through and playing it, having fun with that. Went to bed, woke up the next day. I was like, it'll be a Returnal day. I was actually getting ready to do Returnal, but we had a brunch. I got a little drunk, and I was like, I am not in the headspace to play Returnal because I'm now inebriated and I need to be tight, blessing. I got to be out there with the exact moves.
You gotta be tight.
Yesterday, I threw on Odyssey and played Odyssey for hours, just hours of Odyssey doing the DLC that I had left off where I'm in Elysium, which is the third DLC where you're like in the Persephone's underworld, but not the full underworld. This is like the nice underworld where when you go and you die. And I was like, I'm playing this and I'm like, you know what? I love Odyssey, and this is what I want. It's comfort food. I'm back there playing with all the systems and putting all the stuff in there and, playing with my armor set as Cassandra again, enjoying her run. And I'm like, I want to get back to Greece. Like, I want to get through this. Like, I'm going to see this DLC through, and then it'll end, and I'll go clean up trophies on other stuff that's happening in Greece because this one's more like fantasy/gods and stuff like that. And I beat it. And then I got kicked down, and I was like, there was this really weird transition where this is spoilers for the Assassin's Creed Odyssey DLC that I know you're all about to play tonight. Like, I get there, and Persephone throws me into the underworld where I have to fight Cerberus, and like he pops up, and then it went back to a live action, or not live action. It went back to modern day Assassin's Creed where I had to fight a bunch of people, and then I beat them, and then like, all right, cool. Yeah, then it faded to black, and then it came back, and I went back, and I was like, what is this pacing? And I beat Cerberus, and I was like, all right, cool, they're gonna send me back to Greece now. And then I went in deeper into, now I'm in the real underworld with Hades, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I popped out, and I was like, oh, this was episode 1. I went to the episode 1, episode 2 transition, forgetting that there was like months between these things for normal people, right? Whereas now I just seamlessly went into it, and I was like, there is so much fucking DLC for this game. It's just like the real game of 100 some hours of running through and doing all this shit. Now I'm into episode 2 and I'm in hell. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? The whole time I'm listening to an audiobook on the Echo over here. I'd be like, Echo, resume the book. It would play. I'm just playing muted. Then I'd be like, something about to happen. I'd mute that, do that. I had a great time. I was a little inebriated. I had a fantastic time with it, but it was that thing of like, oh my God, there's still so much Odyssey to play.
Is that much content necessary? Like, does that add to the appeal of Assassin's Creed for you?
Absolutely.
No, but like this is, and Barrett, I'd love your impression of this too. Personally, for me, with all of the Assassin's Creeds, and I'm painting with a broad brush there, and I don't know what my full experience is on this level, but in general, like, I don't know if these games need this kind of DLC. You look at Valhalla, and that's a similar thing that led me back to Odyssey, where it was cool. Wrath of the Druids, bam, popped it in, played, and it was that thing of like, I'm playing through this thing, and I'm like, fuck, I have so much to do in the main campaign still that I haven't done. Like, there's so much to do in this world. Like, I thought Valhalla was just chock full of content, let alone this thing on there. And Odyssey's the same way. Even when I platinumed it, there was more missions to do if I wanted to, let alone, 3 different DLCs with 3 episodes apiece that has all this content and all these trophies to run through and do. I don't know if these Assassin's Creed game need DLC, period.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Barrett.
No, go ahead, Bliss.
I was gonna ask, do you think the next Assassin's Creed game or games, do you think they're gonna continue at this pace where they have this much content, or do you think they eventually pare down? Because I imagine most people who are playing Assassin's Creed aren't playing all of the content at this point.
And see, this is where the interesting conversation from last week comes up of Ubisoft talking about going free to play and putting out their game. Right, speaking bluntly and without any facts in front of me, the return on investment for Assassin's Creed DLC has to be awful. Like, again, you're making these games that already are an everlasting gobstopper of content to go play, and then you're just pouring more stuff in and more resources in, because like it's not like these are half-assed. Like the Persephone's underworld that I was, in is a brand new huge map, all this stuff to do, doesn't look like Greece, has all these new structures, all these new characters, all the like. There's so much into that. Let alone now to talk about Valhalla and the Druids campaign, like. I can't imagine that even with season passes that people are buying when they're in the moment of, I'm so excited for this, or I'm buying the deluxe editions or whatever. I can't imagine that they are seeing when it comes out enough people go back to it. Because you don't hear people talk about this, right? Me and Janet, I think, had a conversation about this on the review day or the embargo day of Wrath of the Druids, where it was like, cool, 3 people have reviewed this.
Yeah.
Like, think about Assassin's Creed Valhalla and what a moment that was last year, and all the reviews and coverage and live streams and yada, 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 yada. This 3 people reviewed it. Okay. Like, people just don't care about DLC that way. And so I think if Ubisoft, and not every example works the way it should work yet, but if they were to look at Assassin's Creed and be like, cool, we're making it free to play, and we're going to put out, rather than games, we're giving you one character and environments and break it up that way, or some other way to think about how you would do a content drop in a free to play thing. I think you'd get more people playing it than you do now. Barrett, am I wrong? You're the Assassin's Creed guy.
mean, no, you're not wrong. And like working at IGN when both Origins and Odyssey came out, and like kind of being like the Assassin's Creed gameplay dude when those games were coming out, and helping with coverage for launch and post-launch and all that stuff. Like, yeah, interest for Assassin's Creed goes down significantly the second DLC coverage starts. And so, yeah, I don't think these DLCs are necessary. Like, I'd argue like maybe a little bit of Origins, because I don't think Origins was nearly as long as Odyssey or Valhalla. I don't think Odyssey or Valhalla like really needed DLC, and it gets even more ridiculous when like, not to greatly spoil things, but like some of the modern day stuff in Valhalla ties into some of the DLC modern day stuff that happens in Odyssey and shit like that. And it's like, it just gets a little too much of like what's necessary and all that shit. And with how, like, I'll admit, like, I really liked Valhalla, but I do agree that it is a fucking long game. It's a very big game, and I just don't know if these games need DLC. And with the conversation about Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft wanting to focus on free-to-play games, I would say, like, I talked about this on my personal stream last week of just like throwing out a possible silver lining, but again, I think it's too early to like really say where this is going to end up. If they start focusing on free-to-play games that have more of the structures that they've been forcibly integrating to their main games, like Assassin's Creed, of, pay to have double XP and all this stuff, and like let's kind of fluff out the world to justify like wanting to pay for that, instead of doing this like dozens and dozens of hour grind, level grinding and all that stuff, because it's necessary to get to a certain like level for story missions in Odyssey.
Sure, it's gated.
And it's like things are gated, and the way that I think they structure things on purpose to kind of incentivize that. And so possibly the silver lining could be to not have that as much in the future of Assassin's Creed, because then they can make their money on more free-to-play structures with new IP or things like whatever that new free-to-play game that's about to come out and stuff like that.
Vision Heartland?
Yeah. And like have those, and so to give the developers of their main series of Assassin's Creed of a possible new Splinter Cell, to make the games that they might actually want to make and not feel the need to design around like paying stuff within the game. So
because people work so hard on this, and it's to the point of too, like I'm 100 some odd hours, I forget, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I'm still playing, and I'm still leveling up and getting the ding and getting an ability point, and it's like, dude, I've played more than 100 hours of this game. Like, I know what my skill set is at this point. Like, I'm just gonna keep upgrading the poison armor I have because I have a poison armor build. Like, stop. Like, but there's so much stuff that went into these new moves and all these different things and yada yada. But it's just like, you're at the end now where it is like, what sucks right now of me playing it is I needed that comfort food and I was into it. I don't think I also, there's a trophy, it turns out, god damn it, that's like, oh, you have to beat the thing with 3 of these humans. I'm like, well, fuck, I didn't know that and I didn't do it, so now I'm not gonna go back for that. So it's like, I got what I wanted out of it, I think, for the weekend, where I'm not like jonesing to go back to it because I don't care about the story where I am right now, and there's no incentive for me to keep going. Like, what does it matter if I unlock a new ability point to put into a move that I don't use. Like I have what I use and I like what I use, and I'm not on the edge of my seat for what's happening with Cassandra.
And the last thing I'll bring up, because someone in the chat brought up, like, they must be making the DLC for a reason. That is, like, they're on their third Assassin's Creed in a row that is majorly open world, and whatever happened in Origins with their DLC must have, influence, like, doing DLC for Odyssey and then doing DLC for Valhalla. So
the impression I've gotten is that, like, they've made the shift in Assassin's Creed feels like a shift toward them trying to make something that is like The Witcher 3. And you look at a game like The Witcher 3 and how those games thrive off of their DLC, right? People talk about, was it Blood and Wine, and like the other DLC expansions for those games and similar types of RPGs. You imagine that that's the move that they're trying to make with this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you guys are way more familiar. But that's why I imagine the strategy is for them is, hey, yeah, let's make expansions that are like those that get people in and excited. But when you have so much Assassin's Creed compared to Witcher games or other similar types of RPGs, that probably gets watered down so much, and like the people that finally get there to actually play the DLC probably come fewer and fewer because there's so much content out there that is Assassin's Creed.
I mean, in addition to like just Immortals, right? Like I adored Immortals, but they have great new DLC that looks cool. But I'm not gonna go back into another Ubisoft open world game after playing, platinuming Immortals and then playing 15, 20 hours of Valhalla. Most of that on that first island, not knowing like that's just the beginning of our island. Like go on further type of thing.
That's awesome.
Like I'm not jonesing to go back into the giant open world thing again. Like I've had my time with that. I'm good with it. More DLC is not going to incentivize me to go back in just personally.
Yeah, and to the point of the chat of like they're doing it for a reason. Yeah, they are, and it's that weird thing of when Odyssey hit for me, and I loved it so much at launch. Like I was following those monthly updates they would put out of like, here's what's happening next month. Here's the new mode we're adding. Here's transmog. Yada yada yada. And so like. You see that with these games, right? Of like, Gary's wife is obsessed with Assassin's Creed and plays all of it for hundreds and hundreds of hours and does it all. Like, there's an audience for it that's doing it that I guess is paying for it, and that's what's surviving. But it just feels like such a weird thing of the games are already so huge to drop more content on them. So you just drowned in it, Kyle. You just drowned in it, Kyle.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask you each and every week to do a segment with us we call hashtag #PSILOVEPHOTOMODE. This is where we give you an assignment. You go take photos of it in the video game, and then you tweet them with the hashtag #PSILOVEPHOTOMODE. Last week I said we're all excited for it. It's got a great photo mode. Let's do Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So first things first is a shout out. Usually it's 2 runners up and a winner. We're going to give a shout out blessing to the Portland Kevin, who tweeted this one out and said, still waiting for my delivery of Mass Effect to pass the time I made this. And it is a PS I Love You XOXO kind of funny poster in the Mass Effect styling that has me, blessing, Tim, Andy, Joey, Kevin, Nick, and Barrett all there as we get ready on the poster there and stuff. So it's a very interesting throwback because I don't know if it was the Portland Kevin, but someone back in the day made one for Beyond that was very similar to this. That was all of us, and I appreciate that quite a bit. The lineage there, the history of that. So thank you, Portland Kevin. But for your first runner-up, who took a photo in the actual game, we're going to Nicholas Blaine, who says, "My ode to Resident Evil in Mass Effect Legendary Edition." Look at that! Look at that body.
Dude, I just got done fighting these guys. That was a bitch. That was a bitch. Let me tell you, I fucking hate it.
Wait,
I'm dying so much.
Are these different than the dudes from like the first planet you start off on?
The Geth?
Okay. Because like these are the same dudes, like they're people, and then they put them on the poles and shit, and then they turn into zombies and shit, right?
Maybe this is my second time fighting these guys. I forget. I don't know.
Yeah,
they're
husks, though, right? Yeah.
Were they on the first
planet? Just a burned body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They come at you.
Okay. Well, they make an appearance again later on.
Okay. Yeah,
wink, wink. You know, be ready for that, Barrett. Wink, wink. Barrett, be ready for that. Okay. Next runner up is Bombbeard. Bombbeard just has a photo here of course, Garrus, a nice black and white close up of Garrus. Of course, the alien I romanced in Mass Effect 2, and I don't regret. Just letting you know.
Love a good portrait.
You got to. And then the winner here, I am cheating, but it's Ben. Please be excited. Who used hashtag PSILOVEPHOTOMODE.
To take a moment and mentally prepare yourselves.
Oh,
mentally
boy.
prepare yourselves.
So this is Mass Effect 2. Took a screenshot of Miranda, but then digitally put in the Milk Mommy Kevin face on there.
Okay, I was like, is that what I think it is? I don't like this.
It blends so well together.
It blends too well. It blends
way too well.
I fucking hate it so much.
That broke my brain for a good 2 seconds. I did not know what I was looking at.
There you go. Good
I don't
job,
like
Ben.
this. Yeah, take it off.
It's a cheat, but I'll allow it. You know what I mean? It's my week. I get to allow it. Blessing, what are you picking for your game next week for hashtag PSILovePhotoMode?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Manifold Garden. This is one I'm a little bit scared that I'm not gonna get many submissions, but we'll see. That game I believe does have a photo mode, and I'm sure the game looks beautiful on PS5. And I'm definitely recommending everybody go check it out. It's a pretty game, but also it's pretty quick to play through. I think it took me like 6-7 hours to beat. And so if that sounds nice to you, jump into it, play it, and then submit your hashtag PSILovePhotoModes.
Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Man, when I say this is like a dream fulfilled, I mean it. I love you all so very much, and I can't believe this happened. Like, I hope this is not the last time I'm here or on anything, because I would love to hop on whenever. But just thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Shout out to the best friends out there for literally being the absolute best. I love you all so very much. I can't wait to hug you in person.
Oh my god!
Eventually.
Oh my god! Yeah.
I can't wait.
That'll be nice to be able to go back to.
Yes, absolutely.
Kyle, if people want to keep up with you, of course, they can come to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where we're about to do the post show. But on your content, where can they go?
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. K-Step. The Trophy Room is at PS Trophy Room on Twitter, and the Trophy Room over on YouTube. Listen wherever you get your podcast services. Rate us 5 stars. We're doing a thing right now. If you rate us 5 stars, everyone that gives us a review on Apple is entered to win a copy of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart on us. So go ahead and do that for us. That'd be fantastic. And if you're into indie games, want to know what's coming out on the indie game front, go hit up 61indie.com and 61indie on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, all that fun stuff as well.
Now, real quick, I Googled here if the Conqueror trophy in the Assassin's Creed DLC Trophy Pack 5 was missable. And it looks like it may no longer be missable, which may make me go, because that'd be fun to go back and get my thing back to 100%. You know what I mean? Keep listening to podcasts and killing stuff.
You're mad, man.
Ladies and
Nobody's
gentlemen,
making you do this.
You know what? Where's Ratchet? All right, where's Ratchet? That's what I'm worried about. Give me
Play some Days Gone. Play some Mass
I don't need to. I already did Days Gone, sir. All right, you play some Days Gone, Blessing. That's on you, sir. You get out there. Maybe I do need to platinum Days Gone for the thing too. We'll figure it out. I should start that. I downloaded that last night too. I gotta figure this out.
It's hard to go to it though when you have Mass Effect right in front of you. That's the thing I've been suffering with. I'm like, why would I play Days Gone when I can just play
It's a long platinum.
You listen to Nick Verge. That's on you. What, Days Gone is?
Oh yeah,
yeah. But I've already done so much of the work.
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Actually, you know what? Do you have it?
I do.
All right, we're going to talk about that in the post show. Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, this is Patreon. No, this is PS I Love You XOXO. If you want to get the post show we're about to do, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where of course you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free. You could be watching live like Royal Martin is, like Vlad J214 is, like Demetrius Newell is. Thank you so much for your love, support, appreciation over there. If you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. Head over to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. Podcast services around the globe. Like, subscribe, share, ring the bells, leave reviews, do everything to help other people find our content. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.